It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell's here. I'm here. We're going to do this a little differently. It's going to look a little different. This is the new format. Kevin King will be practicing on the keys. We'll be talking about Microsoft's earnings. You won't believe the ludicrously capacious amount of money they spent on AI in one quarter. That and Paul finally finds something to replace his precious Xbox. All coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. Episode 892, recorded Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. Capacious Chyrons. It's time for Windows Weekly, the new improved Windows Weekly, now with lower 18ths. Joining us from his fortress of solitude in beautiful lower Macungie, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, right? Paul
Yes.
Thurrott.com. I don't know. I'm confused. Hello, Paul. Without the lower thirds, I just don't know. Oh, wait a minute. There it is in the fine print. You're in lower Macungie, PA.
What is happening here?
No one knows. Let's say hi to Richard Campbell. He is in Madeira Park, British Columbia.
Yeah, I'm at home. Home is good.
So weird. You're both at home.
Yeah.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, watch this trick. A three-shot.
Wow.
Ah!
It's great.
We're playing with the new, as you might have gathered, the new software, which we will be using after this week. We are going to be moving to my attic, Micah's basement, wherever you guys are, and everybody will be at home. Kevin King, who is our producer, is now our technical director. He's never done that before. I used to TD the show for the last 18 years, I think. I TD'd the show for 91 episodes. TDing means the guy who pushes the buttons and makes the camera switch and stuff. But the new system is too complicated for me. So we will have somebody in their home pressing the buttons, and it's Kevin King today, rehearsing down the hall.
Nice.
Hello there, gentlemen. How has your week been?
Well,
Excellent.
a little less stressful than the previous week.
You've recovered from CrowdStrike
stuff.
week, which, by the way, we will from now on call the fourth week of July CrowdStrike week.
There you go.
Yes.
How about that? Every year.
I still think it sounds like a terrorist attack, but you know, whatever.
It does.
I guess it's a brand.
It's just a question of who the terrorist is.
Actually, today it's time for earnings learnings.
Oh, no.
Do you have some earnings learnings for us?
Sure do.
Was it a good quarter or a bad quarter?
Well, it depends on what you care about, right?
Okay.
If you're a Microsoft investor, it was pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of questions around AI, and if you like any of Microsoft's consumer hardware, you might want to look the other way because that's an ugly crash.
Nice.
Well, tell us all. Give us the deets.
Yeah. So Microsoft's fiscal year ended on June 30. So that was the fourth quarter of fiscal 2024.
Yeah.
So for the quarter, $22 billion in net income on revenues of almost $65 billion, we'll call it, up double digits in both cases. And for the year, $88.1 billion net income on revenues of $245.1 billion, also up double digits in both cases. And, they're doing pretty good. The traditional stuff, the stuff I care about, not mentioned or barely mentioned or just really bad news. So it's kind of a gut punch for like me. But the part of the company that's going gangbusters is aside from the stuff that's sort of on autopilot like Windows and Office, there's all this cloud, Azure, AI stuff. Lots of takeaways from this quarter, but to me, the big one is we have been talking about Microsoft's costs each quarter to build out their, or as they say, scale out their AI infrastructure. I've been describing this as $10 to $15 billion per quarter. It was $19 billion last quarter, and it will be more this quarter, and they will spend more this year than they did last year on building out this infrastructure. This is
Goodness knows they have the cash for it. So why wouldn't you?
So that tied to that is Microsoft for the first time. Let's see if I can find this figure. It's 119, I know, for the year. Yeah. Generated over $100 billion in free cash flow for the full fiscal year. So the figure for the last quarter is 23.3 billion. So this is very simplistic, but they're paying with cash.
Yeah, but that's an important thing because the alternative is a stock buyback again.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's far better that they're actually putting the money to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, I don't recall off the top of my head with Activision Blizzard, but that was a $68 billion-ish acquisition. Cash is a strong term, but the problem with that is, well, twofold. But the big problem, well, the two sides are kind of the way that Microsoft recognizes revenues from Activision Blizzard has changed completely because it's in-house now.
Yep.
It used to be a third-party partner, right? So there's been kind of a weird shift in money there. But there are ongoing costs running that business, and those costs are enormous. And, you know, we've had a lot of bad news this year about them closing studios and laying off people. And God, did they not discuss that even for 1 second?
No, I'd be very interested to see what something like World of Warcraft costs annually to operate.
Yeah. So the Activision Blizzard acquisition generated a lot of additional ongoing costs. There are temporary costs associated with the acquisition that will slowly go down and then go away. But I mean, you know, their margins are lower as a direct result of this. Their operating expenses are double digits higher than they were as a direct result of this. If you look at the
You're
Xbox,
talking in the Xbox world, not the.
I'm talking about the whole company.
The whole company.
Yeah, the whole company.
I mean, the whole company still got a 30% margin on revenue. That's insane.
Yeah,
Except in the tech giant industry.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, honestly, you think like software could even be higher. Remember, like ARM Holdings is like the licensing company. Their margins are like 99%
because they make nothing.
No, I know.
But it's also, what is it? 250,000 employees. So that's 400,000 return per employee. Like that, dude. Those are huge, crazy numbers. It almost justifies a $3 trillion market cap. Almost. Just a little.
Yeah. Yep. It's. I don't know. So, big picture, we're looking at AI expenses and costs and benefits. I guess,
if I'm on the board, I'm all over them about the gaming. It's like, what is the strategy here? You bought this huge thing. It's been a year. What are you doing?
So here's what okay. So I have some theories because they're not saying anything and we have to voice the theories, right? Because they won't come out and say this if I'm right. You probably haven't noticed, but I've been super critical of them not putting games in Game Pass, right?
No.
I know I've been subtle about it, but
yeah.
I'm sure there are technical reasons behind this. I was discussing this with Brad this morning, if anyone watches First Ring Daily, but it is inexcusable that this company has not at least voiced an excuse for what's going on here. It's almost a year now. Like, what's happening? But okay, but there's got to be a reason, right? And I think that we've heard rumors that the next gen Xbox hardware will be ARM based, right? I think there is an incredible inflection point or whatever, a nexus or whatever you want to call it, where AI and ARM hardware and Xbox kind of collide and something good comes out the other end of it. But we're not there, right? So Microsoft disappointed everybody a couple of weeks ago, I guess, whenever it was, when they announced like sort of new versions of the existing consoles. I mean, same exact designs. I think one new color on the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, but it's an improved chipset. Like, it'll be lower cost. It'll be lower heat. Like, that's the usual thing you do with a rev. But Sony does plenty of those. Yeah.
So there's that. I think Microsoft wants to, well, they voiced this, but I don't know that I trust it. Always have an Xbox console business. But the thing is, when you look at Activision Blizzard's impact on Xbox, on Microsoft gaming specifically, it's everything, right? If you forget about hardware, which I think Microsoft would like to do, right? That's part of this platform shift. Most of Xbox and most of its gains by far are from Activision Blizzard, right?
Sure.
So there's not a lot of data to point to, but one of the things that Microsoft noted in their post-earnings conference call was that the Xbox platform has over 500 million active users. Okay. So most of those have to be Activision Blizzard, right? So what does that look like? Well, the last time that Activision, for all its problems, and it was a horrible company, was incredibly transparent every time they issued an earnings release.
Because their numbers were
used to
epic.
give us,
They were huge.
Sorry.
Their numbers
they
were
used to give us
phenomenal.
this figure every quarter. So the last time they reported active users, it was 356 million. It had been higher, by the way. It was 360 something earlier that year.
There was
don't
a
know about
bleed
previous.
off of Warcraft for quite a while.
Okay. So interestingly, about 200 million of that is mobile. That's like king.
Interesting.
Like the stuff we don't really talk about too much.
Yeah.
And the reason Microsoft claimed they wanted this company in the first place.
What is the mobile story?
Yeah. Call of Duty, which everyone talks about, is about 90 million-ish users. So mobile is actually twice as big as Call of Duty from a user base perspective,
Right.
not revenues necessarily. I don't know. So vaguely, Satya Nadella, we're energized about the future. We were investing in fundamentals, blah,
Happy
blah, blah,
noises.
whatever. Okay, that's cute. But I think the end game here is, you know how this business would be super profitable if they didn't make hardware, and that's not the outcome anyone wants, right? I just described something terrible.
That being said, if you made a Snapdragon X Xbox, so because I have plenty of friends that are in the game development business, and their whole conversation is about using these generative AI models to make a better game.
That's right.
Right?
Yep. You lower the cost of the games. Yeah.
Well, you do, because you eliminate voice acting, for example, because you're going to generate message.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that's
messaging straight back, right?
Yep. I always use the example that I think that you brought up originally, which was open world games where it can just keep generating more side quests, more content, more areas, more planets if it's a science fiction game, whatever.
Sure. But just the idea that you describe a plot and describe characters' language the way they should speak, but that no two conversations are ever the same. There is no scripted path through the game, per se, like word for word, just the general concepts. That's
interesting.
Phenomenal. Like,
it's
talk
fascinating.
about an experience. You just, every time you played it, they'd say different things. And the idea that you could have incremental effects on them, like we always talked about this, where they'll do 3 scripts for a given character based on, are you a good guy, you're a bad guy,
They'll be
neutral guy.
It's like
Now it could be
choose your own
dozens.
adventure book or something. You could go in different directions. Look, you could do this today in the cloud, right? It would just be expensive.
But could you do it in an Xbox?
But could you do it in an Xbox? I think that's the key. I think that's what they want. I really do.
But it also means changing how games are made. But wait, somebody owns some studios.
Right. And they just laid off a bunch of people, interestingly, and consolidated studios. And we'll see. I don't know. It's you know what?
Xbox, you know how you
Xbox-
change the minds of a bunch of developers in a hurry? Lay off a quarter of their friends.
Sure.
Then have a conversation about how you want to do things differently.
Wow. That's Darth Vader strategy right there.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. Xbox is tough. The console business. I mean, think about. Look, I looked this up, and Xbox console hardware, Xbox hardware, which is mostly console, was down double digits. Right, 40. I'm sorry. I'm trying.
They haven't innovated meaningfully there.
Yeah, but it's not like the quarter. Yeah, it was 44. No, that's not it. It's 40. Where's the hardware? Blah, 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 blah. I thought it was 41. 40, somewhere in the 40.
Plus, it's supposed to be a break-even business anyway. You don't even care how big it is.
Yeah, but that whole model's never worked for them, right? They've never made it work.
No.
So the problem is this part of the business has had declining revenues. I think it was in 6 of the 8 previous quarters, including the one we're talking about right now.
Yep.
The hardware, it was 42% revenue decline over the same quarter a year ago. Last year was not great.
No.
It was not great.
No, and some of that you can absorb in a pandemic correction. But if you don't innovate in this game space soon, you really have just been throwing money away.
Yeah. So but the problem is there are two companies in this market that are doing pretty well in this market, Sony and Nintendo, right? And, they've just never, they had that brief moment, the 360, they were right there. And they ended up losing that round.
Maybe there needs to be a leadership change,
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. I don't want to go there yet, but yeah, that's right.
They could put Bobby Kotick in charge. What could go wrong?
Yikes. Jeez. Sometimes you need a fixer. That's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying.
So, yeah.
But, they have, what's frustrating here, Paul, they have the ingredients.
Yep.
They have top tier studios. They actually have a pretty good hardware pipeline. They could genuinely innovate here.
Maybe. Yeah. No, I know, but at some point, you just, I don't mean you, one does, because I keep saying the future looks bright for Xbox. And then it's like these recent changes to Game Pass.
The other side of this is junk the hardware and just be a game maker. The company is called Microsoft, right?
I agree with that, but a lot of Xbox fans viscerally react negatively to that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And arguably, I don't see Nintendo or Sony particularly focused on bringing AI to the equation. If I'm Satya Nadella,
AI, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I'm Satya Nadella, I desperately need AI to work. I'm going to go down every single imaginable path I can find to create an AI workload.
To that point, that post earnings call started with a little monologue by him sort of explaining, to investors, to be clear, right? The audience, you got to think about who you're talking to. Just want to offer some perspective on why we're doing this thing we're doing, investing in AI the way we are, why we're spending almost $20 billion on infrastructure in one quarter, and it's only going to go up.
Yep.
There's AI, I think, in the same way that cloud made sense for Microsoft, AI does make sense for Microsoft.
Yes.
Even if you've been fearful or hating this stuff from the very beginning, or you feel that like an AI feature in a word processor or something is silly, which I can agree with. I mean, just as sort of a fundamental strategy, it's Azure. It's about Azure AI. It's about Azure OpenAI.
Well, and it's like every time you say AI, you're actually meaning Azure consumption, and that's good for the company.
That's exactly right.
Full stop.
Yep.
Right.
Although, interestingly, I mean, when you're big, it's still hard to grow, quickly.
Yeah.
Azure growth this quarter was 29%. Analysts were looking for I want to say it was 30 to 32 or maybe 31 to 32%.
That's insane.
I know. But this thing was 70% growth for such a long time.
Yeah.
There's still this what's going on here? Why is this lower than we thought? And it's like, it's big now. That's why.
Yeah. Because
really
we don't actually want to collapse the entire planet into cloud resources. Like eventually you start to fill in a market.
Right.
So, we also saw this pivot towards AI right about the time that those numbers were starting to ease off meaningfully. So,
which was an interesting coincidence.
Look at the puppy kind of distraction play.
Yep.
Recognizing also that it's going to prop up the cloud business anyway. The consumption is huge.
Yeah, right. In the end, we might view Microsoft's whatever success that they may have with AI as being a part of the cloud. We to date have sort of talked about this as a new generation, a new era for Microsoft, but maybe it's just really a continuation of the cloud.
Oh, no, without a doubt. It is just all about cloud, right? They got into OpenAI to consume cloud. It happened to pay off and generate out this entire spin-off business.
Right.
There's many ways to keep on spinning this, but I don't see anybody else in a place to actually bring generative AI to gaming, even close to what Microsoft's got in their pocket right now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So it could be a breakthrough like that. You could, in a year, you could turn this around in a big way. Like this next fiscal year, talking about how much money gaming made because of these new models.
There are interesting outside factors that impact the Xbox business over time. There was like this particular quarter, for example, Satya Nadella mentioned the Fallout TV series and how this put some previous versions of Fallout, like the usage of those things went up like 5x, right?
Yeah. And you totally missed the opportunity to take advantage of that. Like, good Lord. That could have been 10
I don't know.
times.
I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. I mean, I'm not sure if anyone could have predicted how well that went. The Halo TV series, probably hasn't resulted in much of anything.
No, everything else has been a loss. But at the same time, build a DLC. Like, good Lord. Especially since they've now signed a second year. Like if you don't have a DLC now, you're missing.
Yeah, that matches the show. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
And I don't even think the chances of the second season being as good are very low.
Yeah, no,
But no reason not to double down.
Yep, the first one was amazing. There was a thing a couple of years ago where they didn't name it. It was funny. They talked around it, but it was Fortnite. Like Fortnite usage sent Xbox usage skyrocketing for a couple of quarters in a row. And that was a big deal. Like that kind of thing has a big impact on them. So, I say this a lot with Xbox, especially Microsoft, whatever, but they could in many ways win by losing, meaning it may not be them who takes direct advantage of AI in some title that they sell, but some game that's running on Azure, right?
Yeah.
Takes off and maybe it runs on Xbox, maybe it's cross-platform, maybe it's PC only. It doesn't really matter. But Microsoft still kind of wins there because, they're winning on the back end, right? So we'll see. I mean, that's a fanciful way to look at it maybe, but interesting to me anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so just like big bucket, mostly consumer stuff, I'll just say not much. I've been doing this for a couple of quarters, maybe almost a year now, but like I start counting the number of times that the Microsoft executives say certain terms like Windows, Office, Surface devices, Xbox, AI, Windows, way down, 8 mentions. The only pertinent stat that came out of this is PC markets, not going great. A little bit of growth from PC makers. Commercial side's okay, but they literally said that was random because sometimes a bunch of licensing changes for a little while for a couple of companies that makes a deal. We can't predict it. It happened, so that was good. But they mentioned that Windows 11 active devices, which is kind of a usage share number, was up 50% year over year, which sent me looking for some data, right? The only source of usage data for this that we have that's of any value, even though it's probably horribly unreliable, is StatCounter. According to StatCounter, Windows 11 is almost 30% of the install base compared to 66% for Windows 10. Using their numbers, the year-over-year growth was not 50%. It was 17%.
Right.
But I don't know. Like I said, this stuff is just, who can say? So I don't know. And literally, that's pretty much it for Windows. They obviously mentioned the Copilot Plus PC launch thing. You might argue that maybe revenue from PC makers should have been better / worse or whatever because of that in this quarter or not, depending on the timing, because those PCs didn't launch until the very end of June. But
yeah, I don't think, you mentioned like no gain from Copilot Plus PC, but it's like there was no time.
Well, except for one thing. I mean, the bulk of those sales probably did occur right away. Yeah. And those Windows license sales, I guess, to PC makers would have occurred months earlier. I mean, I don't know. I mean, no one does because they're not saying, but we'll see. HP, Dell, Lenovo will start talking about their earnings.
But you got to give them a year to sell these things.
Yeah, but it's like a Hollywood blockbuster. The big sales are day one. I think drops off.
So Q1 would really of 25 is really when you're going to see.
That's yes.
Right.
Yep.
It's when do you realize the revenue, right?
Right. And so that's also true on the Surface side. And there's a hint there that what you just said is true, right? So Surface has been in the dumpster for a long time.
Well, it's really post Panos, but even before post.
Yeah. So I did the same thing with Surface I did with Xbox. I look back at the previous 8 quarters. It's been, where am I looking at here? It has, last time they posted a revenue gain was 2 years ago. Now, I don't know, whatever that means. It was 2 years ago, which I think is what led to Panos leaving, right? Because he resisted this strategy shift where they only focus on premium PCs, et cetera, et cetera. But device sales, which in this context means Surface sales, because they're not really selling anything else. I know HoloLens is technically in that market, but that's not really impacting anything financially. Down double digits, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how we fix this. The one little glimmer of hope, which is what I alluded to at the beginning there, was that when they look at the current quarter, Microsoft actually predicts low to single digit growth in devices. And maybe that is tied to the Copilot Plus PC bump or whatever. So we'll find out next month. I'm definitely going Going to look
next
forward
month
to that.
Or next quarter?
Next quarter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next quarter. The current quarter, I guess we'll call it. But yeah, revenues was 11% down, which Microsoft said was what we expected. It's like, okay, great. So that is not great. There's not much to say. Office is mostly commercial products. Strong growth there. This is nothing to say. There's nothing very interesting. And then we kind of hit on the AI stuff. I mean, this to me is the big thing. And like I said, so capital expenditures in this quarter were $19 billion.
Wow. In 4 months?
Yeah, 3 months. And
oh my
they said
God.
that cloud and AI related spend represents nearly all of that money. So roughly half is infrastructure. And the other half is cloud and AI related spend on servers, CPUs, and GPUs. So at 19 billion, yikes.
I don't think
now,
that's untenable, right?
But you're back to the same thing.
I don't know if tenable is a word,
unsustainable.
But they $1 billion.
Except for one thing. So they generated a free cash flow of $23.3 billion. So they're just paying for this. They're literally just paying cash for the infrastructure build out. So they can afford it. But see, one of the things that, I know.
They can afford it every quarter at that run rate.
Right. But you still need to explain to shareholders who might be
it's 19 billion a year or is it 19 billion?
No, it's 19 billion in one quarter. That was one quarter.
Well, that's more than their profits, isn't it?
That's not true.
No, it's not.
What is their profit?
It was 22 last quarter, but it's
so 88. You're eating almost all of the profit.
Right.
On
but that's
something
the
that's
point.
turning no profit.
But this is it's a long-term bet on the future.
It's a bet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a bet.
The alternative is a stock buyback or a dividend. Right. They're putting the money to work.
They're putting the money to work. Yep.
That's true. You're right. What would they do with it besides give it to the
this is the way
buy a video game company? Like, I don't know.
Well, but they say that's the thing. They did that too. That's what's amazing here, right? This company had so much cash on hand, generates so much cash every quarter that they acquired Activision for $68 billion. They spent between 10 and 19 billion dollars a quarter, every single quarter during that fiscal year, and they generated 120 billion in cash while doing that.
Yeah.
So this is this is what they do. This is the company right now.
And arguably that's what a well-run company looks like.
I guess I don't know how to answer. I don't even know how to
put this money to work. And you know what? It turns out as long as you're right, you're great.
Well, this has a little bit of a fake it till you make it vibe to it, but to me,
I think that's all of the description of AI without a doubt.
Yeah,
but
yes,
you can't say they aren't committing.
That's right. Yeah, no, Microsoft, Bill Gates especially used to always talk about these we're betting the company on Bing, betting our company on Skype, and it's like, no, you're not. But they're betting the company.
Is there an example?
I understand. Cash. If they were borrowing money for this, that's true. They're betting the company. This is cash.
Well,
that's a good point. But that's
okay. But this stuff is still costs, and the costs don't end just because you spent it. No. That hardware sits there and doesn't serve customers. It depreciates and it becomes useless, and then you have data centers that no one is using. I mean, you're still betting a lot. It's still a bet.
Yeah, I hope you can keep it busy.
Yep. I mean, according to them, they would have built more if they could have. They're doing this as fast as they can, just like CrowdStrike rolling out updates.
Apple's entire R&D budget for a year was $30 billion.
Right.
Sure.
For a year.
That was, Apple in Steve Jobs' era, their R&D budget was almost
they hardly spent anything.
Microsoft has always spent a ton of money on R&D. That stuff, that's always been an interesting contrast. So, Apple maybe has, I don't want to say normalized, but compared to the way they were before, probably, right? Anyway, Microsoft makes a lot of money. They spend a lot of money, but they're investing it. And like I said, I don't, they could win in AI by losing and, by just being that back end infrastructure company. And hopefully some of their first party stuff will take off as well, right? Whether it's in video games or through Windows or Microsoft 365, which is probably the most likely culprit. They cite things like GitHub Copilot is the most successful AI-powered developer tool. I'm sure it is, but it can't generate that much money. I mean, there aren't that many developers using it. It's
all of this is small. A deficit now, right? I mean, everything.
I heard it was. We heard that. Yeah, that's the rumor. But yep. All right. Anyway, I think that's most of the. I think that's it for earnings. Really,
there's your report.
Okay. Well, let's take a break.
Yeah,
I think. Yes, you're watching Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott in Lower Macungie. Is it still lower, or are you now in Middle Macungie?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Leo. It depends. See, physically, geographically,
this is the conversation.
I am in Lower Macungie.
Okay.
But as far as the U.S. government understands it, my postal code, whatnot, I am in Macungie.
Spiritually,
not
in
upper.
Macungie. Is there an Upper Macungie?
There is an Upper Macungie. We hate those guys. Yep.
Civil wars have been fought over less.
That's right.
Somebody's going to throw in a West Macungie at some point. There's really going to be trouble.
Macungie Heights.
And is there a park in Madeira Park? That's the other question.
There are quite a few parks in Madeira.
Right, it's all park.
It's almost.
How do you
all
know
park,
the difference? Yeah. How can you tell the difference?
Grizzly bears.
Yep.
Oh.
If
there's grizzly bears, then it's a park.
You're in the park.
The playground doesn't take off.
Wow.
The playground fails.
Okay. I just learned from Jeopardy. I learned a new Quebecois phrase. I'm going to try out in Montreal. Attache tatuk, which means put your hat on.
Yeah. Ferme la bouche.
Ferme la bouche. No, not today, because I have a big tale to tell about Melissa, our fine sponsor for a long time. The data quality experts for a really long time, since 1985. Melissa has helped over 10,000 businesses worldwide harness accurate data with their industry-leading solutions, processing, wait a minute, stand back, you thought 19 billion was a big number, 1 trillion address, email, name, and phone records. 1 trillion. We're thrilled to announce Melissa's outstanding achievements in the latest 2024 Data Quality and Global Address Verification reports from G2. Melissa has been recognized as leaders in both data quality and global address verification, as well as in several key feature categories. Score in governance, get ready, perfect, 100% compared to an average of 88. Score in data matching, perfect, A++, 100% compared to an average of 90. This is a 4.0 report card here. Preventative cleaning, 100%. The average is 89%. And normalization, 94%. Normalization is only an A. Okay, the average is 90. Melissa's also earned glowing satisfaction ratings. Ease of administration, 96%. The average is 88. Ease of setup, 95%. Average is 88. Ease of doing business with, 94% of their customers say these guys are the best, compared to an average of 92%, and the ease of use is 90%. Melissa is dedicated to providing solutions that are effective, easy to implement and manage, ensuring maximum usability and compliance with client requirements. One of the ways Melissa's made this easy for you is they've created something they call the Melissa Marketplace. So you can see all the tools Melissa offers, a really amazing data ecosystem, premium tools and service for technology and business users alike. I'll just give you an example, a couple of the apps and services you can choose from. Business mailing lists and sales leads. Yeah, they do that. You can maximize your direct marketing, your telemarketing, and more with quality business mailing lists and sales. Global address database that contains an accurate and detailed information on every address, so you never are sending mailers, brochures, products to the wrong address. And that's just a fraction of what's available in the marketplace. Check it out. And yes, I always want to say this, reassure you, Melissa treats your data like it's theirs, like it's gold. They use secure encryption for all file transfers and information security ecosystem built on the ISO 27001 framework. They also adhere to GDPR policies. They maintain SOC 2 compliance. They do it all. So you can, feel rest assured your data is safe. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. Melissa.com/twit. That's MELISSA, Melissa.com/twit. Melissa is a 4.0 student. I got to tell you, melissa.com/twit. We thank him so much for supporting Windows Weekly. So we have done the earnings learnings, but there are some kind of related stories. For instance, one of the ways Microsoft is spending all the money they're not spending on AI is giving it back to the guys. That's nice.
Yeah. Obviously Microsoft layoffs have been a big story of the past year, at least the last 6 months especially. But this company has actually grown from 150,000 employees 4 years ago to, I think it's 230 something thousand today. Yikes. So they apparently announced internally that they were going to give employees a one-time cash award this year on top of their normal annual bonuses. There weren't any specifics for numbers, but the understanding from GeekWire, which is Todd Bishop's publication we love and trust, is that it will be in the thousands of dollars. It's not like a $50 Applebee's gift card.
We're talking like up to 25% of your bonus eligible salary.
That's nice. Okay. That's a nice thing to do.
It's probably going to be pretty good.
A chunk of change.
This will go over well with the people who were laid off in the past year. So that's going to be good news.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're saving so much money now that we got rid of those jerks that we thought we'd give it back to the guys who were left.
But it's not for the execs. This is for their
employees,
workers, I think good. Todd's thing says level 67 below, which is below partner level, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much of the details of how this works internally, but I think with executives now, a lot of their pay is, including Satya Nadella's, is going to be based on success with AI, right? They're getting, it's not enough just to, the part of the business that you're working in or in charge of is doing well. It's like, no, you've got to show up and do this stuff too.
It's a base salary, it's a unit profitability, and then it's shares.
Okay.
And so as you get more senior in the company, the compensation in shares is worth so much more than everything else combined.
Yeah.
Especially,
I mean, is the share price doing well? I haven't really followed that.
It came off a little lately,
Yeah. I don't have too many details on this because it was in the information and I'm not paying for that. But they reported today that TikTok had been spending about $20 million every month on OpenAI models through Microsoft Azure through at least March. According to this publication, that's close to 1/4 of the total revenue that Microsoft was generating from this business. And it was on pace to generate $1 billion annually or $83 million per month, according to a source. And that's all I know. So,
because 20 million would be 240 million.
Yeah, I know. This is like the math of the Windows 11 install base.
And this is not all the AI revenue. This is specifically the OpenAI on Azure revenue.
That's right.
Because, which I think is an important part. Because I tell you, at 20 million a month still sounds experimental for what TikTok moves in money. Like that doesn't sound like.
I purposefully don't follow this company very closely, so I'm not really sure what they generate, but I'm sure it will be infuriating, whatever it is to me.
Well, they're like a $10 billion company, right? Plus. Yeah. So to spend 20 mil, it's a couple of percentage points, right? Yeah. I mean, you could look at that just from a stream of sentiment analysis of statement of comments on TikToks. You could burn that for that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of coming at it from Microsoft's perspective. Like this is an example of a company spending this kind of money, and the goal should be that they see.
The point of the story is that there are customers buying this $19 billion investment.
They're customers you've heard of.
Yeah. Yep. TikTok, althook
that are agents of a foreign government.
TikTok's 20
I'm sure
million
we're not funding the Chinese military, if that's what you're suggesting. But
I think it would be larger if it were.
They do say that TikTok's 20, because I subscribe to the information because I believe in supporting good journalism. TikTok's 20 million a month.
It's close to 25%. I never even considered such a thing.
Yeah. 25% of the total revenue Microsoft was generating. So if I multiply by 4, that's 80 million a month. I don't know where
about $1 billion a year.
Billion a year.
Yep.
So
this is specifically OpenAI models running on Azure. So this is most likely something called Azure OpenAI Services. Right? It's that part. That's the segment of the business. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, there's some incremental value from doing Copilot on the PCs. We don't know how much, but they're selling that, and there's value in it. I'm just looking at that 19 billion. That's all.
I hope they didn't spend it on spell check and Notepad. I don't know.
Hey,
I
that
already
ain't cheap.
I already said the worst thing they could do, which is just use it as a sentiment analyzer. But
Yeah, the red squigglies aren't going to pay for themselves.
There you
That's all
go.
I'm saying. So I don't know. Anyway, so okay. I guess we're never going to get hard numbers on this stuff. This is the problem.
No.
So, well, other than through reports like this, because Microsoft is never going to come out and say, "Hey, we made X number of dollars doing this thing."
no,
They
this
don't
is
do that
specifically an anecdotal reference. We could also safely presume that TikTok is the largest buyer then, because why else? We need an anecdote.
That should be the logical next question, right? Is that right? Maybe they are.
Well, and the only reason maybe they're number 2, and you pick them because it's hip, right? It's TikTok.
Well, this was just like a leak or something, wasn't it? I don't think anyone talked about this openly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
think
not
it's
sure where
based on
this
the source.
comes from. They also have this table, how select corporations purchase access to OpenAI's models, whether they buy it through OpenAI or through Azure or through both. And look at all these big companies that go through Microsoft: AT&T, CarMax, Coca-Cola, Fidelity, H&R Block, IKEA, Intuit, KPMG.
You know why
Mercedes.
they do that, Leo? Because no one
Why?
ever got fired for choosing Microsoft.
Well,
Yeah.
They
Right.
look
What
at-
is what is
they
this
literally
OpenAI
made it blue? But now look at this list again and say, why did they pick TikTok from this list?
Yeah, really. They could have said Coca-Cola. Well, TikTok must be the biggest, right?
I'm thinking, so I think
it's the
they're
hippest.
probably,
The rest of
It's
these
the
are all
hippest.
standards. This is the hippest.
but there are, okay. But these companies all kind of speak to the diversity of companies that would want to use AI. It's likely that in any part of this, that there's some big accounts like this one, and then there's a million of little nippy, accounts that are just doing little bits here and there, right? And that
a million here, a million there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you talk about real money.
Yep.
But no, it's very interesting to see. You could have said Coca-Cola. You could have said H&R Block. You could have said KPMG.
Well,
you could have said
I think it was
CarMax.
just- I think
You
it was
said
just-
TikTok.
But I
This
think it
is
was
coming
based-
from,
this is from a
according to
source,
someone who saw internal financial
I think it was just a
documents.
source. Like, maybe it stood out because the number was bigger and they were looking at a spreadsheet. I don't know. But this is just this is not a planned PR moment. This was a leak, right?
Yeah. And so
I
somebody else picked TikTok. But Coca-Cola is 5 times the size of TikTok, like for crying out loud. Although the margin.
Yeah, but how much AI do you need to generate sugar water, right?
Malted battery acid is the way I usually remember it. Yeah.
Seriously, TikTok uses it as filters. I mean, they use this is
They could. We don't know. But
well, we don't know, but I would guess they have a lot of AI filters.
yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
You've seen them. Turn yourself into a Disney princess. You've done that. Come on,
Yeah.
tell me you don't. Tell me you haven't done that,
Heck,
Richard.
you don't know what I'm wearing the lower half of my body right now. Like, that's a separate issue. Me and my tutu are for meat.
This is not the first time that Richard and the term princess have been used together in the same sentence.
Actually, so it's interesting because at the bottom of the information article, the part that you unwashed masses can't see, it says The Verge reported last year that ByteDance was using OpenAI's GPT-4 model to train its in-house AI models.
Interesting.
So
especially when you talk about social media, the thing you're going to go after is inappropriate sexual content, violence, like those kinds of
they
things.
may use it for screening.
But is there any
That would be
worry
what they
about inbreeding when it comes to AI? I'm going to use AI to train
huge.
this model, to train this model, to train this model, and then
I
you get
wonder
back
if
and
I think they're training their own model and then using OpenAI as the validator to say, are we doing as good as OpenAI
maybe.
recognizing these things? Okay. So it's a test platform. Yeah, I need to test that my model's good, so I use somebody else's model.
$20 million though. Jeez.
Yeah, testing stuff.
TikTok must be working on a pretty big freaking model, which they probably are actually.
Responded to The Verge saying they were employing OpenAI's models to a very limited extent to develop their own models. So they
There
may
you go. I think I may have called it then.
Yeah. Although there's a commenter, and by the way, the information commenters are very good, who says it's highly likely that TikTok is using Azure OpenAI to generate the data they need to train their own AI.
That is not highly likely.
I don't know if it's highly likely.
No,
Yeah.
because all evidence shows that is a very bad idea.
Yep.
Well, it's how we got mad cow disease. That's all I'm saying.
That's it. Yeah. Stop.
That spread really
grains.
well. Like what?
When you think viral, you think mad cow.
I mean, viral or cancerous? Which one are you looking for?
Jacob's Creutzfeldt disease is a viral. Well, it's prion, but let's not get technical.
Yep. Yeah, very good. And then just because we talked about it, I wasn't really sure where else to put this, but AMD announced earnings. Intel, obviously the PC makers will be coming soon. But the interesting thing to me here is that the majority of their revenues are now coming from data center,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just because everybody else is out of stock that they had?
Okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, look, there's a reason Burger King exists.
Yeah.
That's not a bad place to be, but
no. Number two makes a lot of money. Like there's no two ways about it. These guys are doing just fine, but there's so much pressure to expand clouds right now. I wonder if you get the CPUs you can get. There's nothing wrong with AMD CPUs. Arguably, they do better cloud workloads than just about anything.
Yeah, Microsoft mentioned the silicon, like CPU, GPU, MPU, whatever they're using in their own data centers in their earnings, and they specifically called out AMD, NVIDIA, and then themselves, right? Because they're doing their own things. I guess it was twice as big. I'm sorry. It's about 2.8 billion from data center, 1.5 billion from the client group. That's desktop, computers, right? PCs. And then what used to be the big thing for back when it was Radeon, gaming revenues fell 59% to 648 million.
You know what you don't see in their play at all? AI.
Yeah. So, I bet except that the GPUs they're selling to data centers are used for AI, right? Like that's AI, So in some sense, you could see them as a kind of a mini NVIDIA, but they also have this PC play, which I think NVIDIA might have soon again as well in the CPU sense, right? I know they make video cards.
Paul, don't you think all of the vendors will be pursuing putting NPUs in PCs from now on? It's such a vital part of our workflows.
Well, I sense sarcasm there, but
no.
but yeah, I mean they are, of course, right? So today, actually,
I hope they aren't. I think somebody have enough nerve to say, "Hey, we'll do this when it actually does anything useful." In the meantime, you're wasting your money. You could save it buying AMD.
Oh. Well, I mean, so their next generation PC processors started launching today, the mobile versions. The desktop versions were pushed back a couple of weeks. But these are I think it was 50 tops.
All right. So they're on the MPU bandwagon. So all of us can have, it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to buy an additional processor. It doesn't do anything.
Well, it's just a processor. So it's just a part of the processor.
Third one. Yeah. The third one in each of these.
Yep. So anyway, they're doing okay.
They'll get by. I'm glad they're doing well. I don't think they're going to rock it up like NVIDIA. Then again, NVIDIA's rocket going these days.
Yeah. We need a number two. So I'm glad they're doing something. I think it's a good business for them to play in.
I also think it's an unreasonable comparison, a GPU manufacturer versus a CPU manufacturer.
Okay. I mean, they make GPUs. I hear.
Yeah, that's not what they're known for.
Yeah, right. But I think that maybe this is part of that shift. But we'll see. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So this must have been over the weekend. I guess it was Friday. So Microsoft has posted a couple of times about the behind the scenes stuff with CrowdStrike, right? So we got that John Cable post last week that we talked about last week, I'm sure, where he was talking about the thing I was talking about, which is the need for everyone in the security industry to kind of work together and to solve these problems. And he didn't say it this way, but it's like, we don't have to involve regulators. Let's just do the right thing for everybody, which to me is just common sense and makes sense.
Well, it's like, hey, the regulators are coming, get yourself in order, because the closer you are to having good order, the more likely you are to be part of the regulation.
Yeah, right. At
least I hope the regulators are coming, goodness knows.
Since then, I guess this was Friday, Microsoft has published a detailed post about the technical, what happened technically with this CrowdStrike plot, with this outage, right? Why it happened, how it happened, yada, yada, yada. But as they point out, Microsoft actually has implemented a lot of security controls in Windows, specifically Windows 11, that these companies are not taking advantage of. And a lot of that stuff allows them to do exactly what they are doing, but without going into the kernel.
Yeah.
And as part of and this is not just true of PCs, it's servers and also Azure, but they're going to work with these guys, and maybe we could fix this, right? So they're obviously in a close relationship, and they've been. I mean,
you would presume that George Kurtz is going to come out and say, "Hey, we're going to make sure this never happens again by getting ourselves out of Ring Zero." Right.
Yeah,
We're working closely with our partners to make that.
Well, they're going to talk a lot about processes and, all that stuff
they
too.
are. It's like, we will be more careful next time is not a strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing about this post is that they mentioned some like common sense things that companies can do to the secure data and whatever else. And you can almost read like a consumer post in here. It's like, back up your data securely and often.
We're going to screw up more often. You should plan for that.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, security stuff. This is the thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about password managers later. And Richard and I were kind of talking about it before the show, but what I've found talking to people is that a lot of people are like me, which is that security is often so daunting that they maybe every once in a while will kind of give it a shot, try to be better, do the right things to secure their online accounts.
And then panic and run and hide under the desk. This stuff's terrifying.
Then they give up, right? It's so complicated and so, daunting.
You're being asked to make decisions that you do not understand. Don't make the decision.
Yeah, it's probably an evolutionary tactic, it's wired into our DNA.
It's the paradox of choice, right? It's like there's too many different options here. I don't understand them. I can't make an informed choice, so I will not choose.
Yep. So.
Now, according to Rush, you still made a choice, but not a good one.
You made a choice not to do anything yet.
There you go. I just threw you a Tom Sawyer reference.
I was just going to say, the real Tom Sawyer.
I thought you meant Rush Limbaugh. I see.
There you go.
So,
The
God, I missed that guy
Neil
so
Peart will drum in your
I
head.
don't think you do. I don't think so. I miss Neil Peart. Neil Peart was awesome.
Oh, was he awesome?
He's so great.
What? Anyway,
Sorry. We're just a little Canadian humor here. It's okay.
Nobody would argue about
Canadian.
Anyhow, so in the Windows space, we are also in the Windows space. Last week, I'm embarrassed to say, I let week D pass, I believe without mention. We didn't talk about it, I don't think. If we did, it was only to say that week D came and went without, it eventually got one, but Tuesday weekdays, normally when you get the updates, right? The preview updates, and that never happened. I kind of zoned on it, I think. And then Thursday or Friday in that week, Microsoft actually, it must have been Thursday, late Thursday,
pushed it.
Microsoft actually released the preview update for Windows 11 versions 22 and 23 H2, right? Containing the features that they had previously put in the release preview about 2 weeks prior. So we had talked about that. And I said, look, this will be the next one. So that's unfolding on schedule. Although the actual day of the preview update when it was a few days late. That's not a big deal. These features are not major. This is the duplicate file tab thing or in File Explorer, the ability to drag an app shortcut from the top of Start down to the taskbar to pin it there. And then a kind of a weird taskbar shortcut related feature that I don't think anyone's ever going to use. It doesn't really matter. So nothing major, but that is happening. And these features are, they're on the slow roll. So you might get one, but not the other two or three. You might, it will change over time because that's how we do things. To me, the bigger deal though is 24H2, right? So it's only been out for a couple months. It's only limited availability, Copilot Plus PCs, unless you went and did the manual install like I provided the info on. There was no week D update for 24H2, which is unusual. But then that same day, in fact, at the same time, they released a weekday update for 22 and 23H2. They released a new build of Windows 11 24H2 to the release preview of the Windows Insider program. And I don't think that is coincidental. So I think the time is a little mixed up, but I think these features are the things we are going to see in 24H2. And then again, later in 22, 23H2. Possibly as soon as August's Patch Tuesday, which is less than 2 weeks away. Yeah, just under 2 weeks away. Like I think that's going to be the schedule. I think this could have been the week D update. So the 4 tiles you see on the lock screen now, most people only see 3 or less, but it's supposed to be 4. The account manager experience, which actually I see right now this is 24H2. So I'm actually seeing this somehow. This is when you click on your profile picture and you get little indicators for Microsoft 365, Copilot Pro, Xbox Game Pass, whatever you might subscribe to. And it will tell you if those things are active, how much cloud storage you're using in OneDrive, et cetera. Completely pointless. The File Explorer stuff we talked about, but also the ability to drag and drop files into what they call the breadcrumb bar, that segmented part of the address bar. So if you want to copy or move a file from the current location to a root folder, you can do that again, like we've been able to do since, I don't know, 2000 at least, but they broke it in that 23H2 Explorer update. Many more changes.
I do not know why there needs to be innovation in this space. This is a pretty known world, right?
Yep, it's silly. Yeah, it's all of this is silly.
Feels very
the ability to share by sending yourself an email. It's like, seriously. So yeah, it's nothing major, but they're testing, and so I think the thing to look forward to now is in a little under 2 weeks we're going to get a Patch Tuesday update. 22 and 23H2 are absolutely going to get that thing that's in the preview update. If you want to get that now, 24H2, I bet we get this. I bet this is what happens. I bet that's how it happens. If not, it will be the next month. I mean, they're obviously heading in that direction. So there's that.
Okay.
Yep. A couple of other minor Windows Insider bits. Everyone is probably familiar with PC, or maybe I'm not familiar with it, with Phone Link, which used to be, what was it? I think it was called PC Link before, Link to Phone or whatever.
You mean the app I keep giving up on because it keeps needing me to reauthenticate and turn stuff on again and again and again until I'm like, you know what? How about I don't use you?
Yeah, so they're rolling out a related feature in all Insider channels called Link to Windows that will let you access all of the folders and files and media that's on your phone through the File Explorer, right? Without doing the link thing. And it works over Wi-Fi, right? In addition to a cable. So it's not quite the same as that, the current implementation that you get through Android. And yeah, that's fine, right? There's fun little things like you can click on the phone icon in the address bar and you'll get like a little fly down that shows you like how much storage is there and how much you're using and yada, yada, yada. So it looks fine. It looks nice. That's a good idea. I can't wait for them to put it on the iPhone. And then some minor changes to in the beta channel for the widgets feed that will enable a pretty major change if it ever happens, which is the ability to use third-party news feeds in the widgets board instead of the terrible Microsoft feed, right? My expectation is that if any appear, they will also be terrible, because who would ever do something like this? But we'll see. It can't be as bad as, it can't be as bad as what's there now. So hopefully that will be pretty good. And then just a couple of things on these new AI PCs, right? So I reviewed the HP EliteBook Ultra, which is their business class Copilot Plus PC. It's okay. This is the first one that wasn't awesome, right?
Wow.
The battery life was about 2 hours less than the other two I've reviewed so far.
Doesn't that take time for it to really settle out into what the battery life will be?
Yeah, no, I did this over the same amount of time as the others.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened there. It's also technically, because they're changing all their brands, it's actually a replacement for what used to be called the Dragonfly, which is an awesome computer.
Right.
There hadn't been a new one in 2 years, and it really just doesn't live up to that legacy, unfortunately.
Because there was a Dragonfly Chromebook as well, right?
Yeah, there is. Dragonfly Pro Chromebook. Yeah. Actually, I think there's a normal Dragonfly Chromebook as well. So I think there are two.
Yeah, I think didn't they make it with different hardware? Like
the Pro ones are AMD hardware, or AMD based, and different bodies. Yeah. So I don't know.
What made this less wow than the others?
It's there's only one model. It's non-configurable. It's expensive because it comes with 3 years of warranty.
Whether you want it or not.
There's a consumer version. You could save $500 by getting that one instead. It's the same thing. It's fine. It's not bad. It's just that the other two were so good.
Yeah.
I still start typing on the Surface laptop and it's like, yes, this is what I want this to be like. It's wonderful.
I figured you didn't even before you typed, because you opened the screen and it just came on. You're already.
Well, they all do that now. I'm just used to this every day.
So now that's boring to you. Is that okay? I appreciate that.
So the other day I opened the EliteBook 1040 that's based on the Meteor Lake thing. And I turned it toward my wife and I said, do you notice anything? She goes, it's booting. And I said, yes, it is booting. It's cute. That's cute. You tried.
How charming of you.
Yeah. Oh, you're delightful. Anyway, it did boot up at least. That's, I guess, a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then Intel just announced that it is going to launch its Lunar Lake Core Ultra Generation 2 mobile CPUs on September 3, which is right before IFA, right? So that will allow the PC makers that will be there, which will be all of them, to announce Lunar Lake-based laptops then, right? So this is going to be kind of a big show. AMD's gotten a lot of press for this these Zen 5 era AI PC chips, right? And like I said, those just started rolling out today in PCs, and I think just in stores you can just buy them. And then that's the mobile version. Sorry, the ones you can buy are going to be desktop based. Those will be in a couple of weeks, but I think it's Intel. They're going to make a splash. So I want to be super clear about this.
They need to be. Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, I hope I don't want anything to go wrong. So yeah, I do hope that they are able to get it right. We'll see.
Well, and didn't they just announce some big layoffs? So
yeah, I didn't see that in time for the show, but yeah. They also, yeah.
Something to talk about next week, but it's like thousands and thousands.
Yep. Well, it's a big company. I mean,
it's a big company.
When you think about what they're trying to do, I mean, I guess you could compare it to what Microsoft's doing.
Yeah, but to me, it's always engineers or admin staff like that, because those engineers are irreplaceable. They have a skill that only works in like 3 places in the world. So what do you do?
Yeah, but that also makes them more valuable, right?
Yeah.
If you're that place, those are the guys you want.
They'll get a job right away, no doubt. But but there's only, like I said, there's only a few places to go.
Intel can't get past their current generation chips fast enough. I just, they have so many problems. It's not just the ones that people know about. There's a lot going on.
Really? There's more, you think?
Oh yeah, there's a lot more. Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Geez.
A lot more.
Oh, geez, man.
Jeez.
I mean, when you have a chip that crashes,
what they're doing is complex.
And you complex. Can't. Yeah. I understand, but there's competitors.
Yep. I know.
And I hear AMD is up this quarter.
Right. Yeah. Now, granted, it's mostly because of data center, but actually, I'm going to talk about an AMD laptop later in the show, because I did get an AMD based laptop in for review, and it's very interesting. The Dragonfly Pro, the Windows PC version, also runs a very interesting hybrid AMD chipset that's now about a year old, but very interesting, right? That PC is incredible performance and great uptime, and it's not ARM, So AMD is doing something right. There's no doubt about it.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I know you've been waiting for it. Together at last, Microsoft 365 and AI. Wow. But first, I just want to give you a moment to take it all in. First, a word from our sponsor, 1Password. So here's a question that I admit it's a loaded question. Do your end users always work on company-owned devices? Of course they do. And IT-approved apps? Of course they don't. No. So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and those BYODs? 1Password has an answer to this question, and they call it Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management is the first security solution that brings all those unmanaged devices and apps and identities under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected. Every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. It solves problems traditional IAM and MDM cannot touch. Imagine your company's security, if you will. Close your eyes. No, don't. If you're driving, please. But imagine, please, keep your eyes open. If you will, I have a car now that if I pick my nose, says you're not paying attention. So, okay, I'm just saying, don't pick your nose. Imagine your company's security like the quad of a college campus, okay? Visualize that. The green sward, the brick buildings, ivy covered, the beautiful. There are nice paths, right? Paved paths, brick paths between the buildings. Those are the company-owned devices, IT-approved apps, the managed employee identities. It's a wonderful, wonderful world, but that's not the real world, because every college quad has it. There are those dirt paths that people actually use, the shortcuts through the grass that are the shortest point from A to B. I'm going from econ to history. I'm going to go straight over there. And that's, That's the unmanaged devices. That's the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities like contractors on your network. Most security tools focus on those happy little brick paths, but a lot of security, I would say most security problems take place on the shortcuts. 1Password, extended access management, is security for the way we work today. Available to companies with Okta, coming later this year to Google Workspace and Microsoft Entra. Check it out. Learn more. 1password.com/Windows Weekly. That's the number 1, PASSWORD.com/Windows Weekly. Thank you, 1Password. Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com and Makunji, PA. Mr. Richard Campbell from RunAsRadio.com and Madeira Park, BC. Continue on, my friends.
Well, here's a name you haven't heard in a while.
Oh, man.
Ben Kenobi. No.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, there's a name I haven't heard.
Skype. So Microsoft announced yesterday, I think it was, that Skype is now ad-free. And I know the question you're all asking.
Was it? Did it have ads?
There were ads in Skype?
Yeah. How would we know?
Yes, that's the problem.
I actually use Skype every single day. So
do you?
I've noticed.
Yeah. Do you use that with Brad? What do you use Skype for?
With Raphael and Mary Jo.
Oh. You talk to Mary Jo every day?
No, not every single day, but I talk to her regularly.
Wow. He's cheating on us, Richard.
Yeah,
I knew it would happen.
I'm promiscuous. The point is, I'm not really sure what the point is. They've been really kind of building out this Skype UI in ways they don't really like. They've added an AI
feels like
chat
interns.
bot.
They've just been doing stuff.
Yeah, it's right. It's almost like a let's experiment here because not that many people will know.
Yeah, now that we're irrelevant, let's go.
Yeah. So in addition, like there are channels and you can like kind of use it as an almost like a news feed that's probably AI based and blah, blah, blah. So this is like, I'm just there to chat with people. Right. And sometimes to do like an audio call or whatever. Like it's not, this stuff like Skype today, like it's another outlet for that crappy Microsoft news feed. Like I just don't need or want this. Right.
No,
nobody does.
No.
So to me, that's
imagine being so sufficiently irrelevant that even the ad guys at Microsoft are like, whatever.
Yeah, I know they're not saying it that way, obviously, but they're promoting it as, hey, look, it's
nothing else will get you to use this. How about
free
this?
Now. Yeah, but don't worry, the new Outlook for Windows, that's full of ads. That's not changing. Yeah. So yeah, don't worry about that one. And I guess I didn't. Laurent told me this, but the Outlook mobile app also has a channels tab, which is just like the
that's
Skype
what I want in my email. I want channels in my email.
Yep, has like a news feed in it, and there are ads in there still. I don't, I guess because it's not Skype, it doesn't get the ad-free experience. I don't know.
Well, if more of us can quit Outlook, maybe it'll go with the ad-free road.
I've been advocating just that for 25 years. Oh, what a hairball. Anywho, last week, OpenAI announced Google's biggest nightmare, which was something called SearchGPT. Right now, it's just what they're calling a prototype. There's a wait list, and it's a bunch of AI search features that they're going to roll into ChatGPT based on feedback and testing and so forth, addressing the concerns of the New York Times and some other people. They partnered with the Wall Street Journal and the Atlantic to provide some up-to-date information from the web that the chatbots typically don't have, or that chatbot, any chatbot, but that one in particular doesn't usually have. It works like ChatGPT. It's a chatbot interface. You ask questions, it gives answers. You can continue it in a conversation if you want, or you can start new chats, et cetera. So I signed up for it. I haven't gotten in. I don't think I will. I'm sure they look at me and laugh politely.
You'll see. But, I look at it two ways. I mean, everybody's happy to put a shot across the bow of Google. That's always fun. But more importantly, you're getting ready for an IPO. You got to show you're still innovating and there's new products because if you're going to look at the revenue, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. They also, I didn't write about this, but back at that big event, I think it was back in May, where everyone expected OpenAI to announce a search product. They started rolling out one of the features for ChatGPT that they showed off then, although in a very limited preview with a limited audience, for those more natural voices. So when you interact with ChatGPT using your voice, it sounds more like you're talking to a human being, which is creepy and cool at the same time, I guess.
You're not doing it right if you don't hit the uncanny valley.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I have to say, I'm really happy to see happening is that Canva, which is a company I don't think I would have thought too much of.
Yep.
They acquired the Affinity creative tools a couple of months ago. And now they've acquired Leonardo AI, which is an AI image generation startup. And, they're doing you can use our tools for free for 6 months thing, right?
Yep.
I bought them probably end of last year on a big sale. So I didn't really, spend as much as I could have, but they are dramatically less expensive than Adobe. And maybe more to the point, are not subscription based, right? Which I like. You buy it, you own it, and you don't keep paying and paying and paying and paying. And they've said they're not changing their business model, but the fact that they've acquired an AI company just shows, they're gunning for Adobe in a very serious way, which I love.
Yeah. At the same time, it's like, what was Leonardo's prospects? Because there's a lot of AI companies.
It was acquisition.
Running out of money. Right. And it's like, hey, might just administrate. How about I stop you from being embarrassed, employ all your people, and just clean this up for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Because Canva is a successful business. They're Aussie. They brought in some serious money. I think they've got some cash. They're publicly traded, and so they can afford to do. If they've got some cash flying around, it's a great time to be buying AI companies.
Yeah,
for the talent.
I just looked at this stuff recently because Microsoft put a designer out of preview, and then someone asked me about these tools. So the three big players in that part of this space are Canva, Adobe Express, and Microsoft Designer. So.
Not Figma?
Well, no, this is for consumers. Like, in other words, you're designing, these are what I would call modern versions of what used to be like page publisher programs. Like, I need to make a flyer. I need to make I want to welcome my new dog to the family and send out like a card to everyone. We don't do these physical things anymore. So they're digital now. But of course, everyone today has like a YouTube channel or a blog or, whatever it is. You're doing a Facebook marketplace, something, you need graphics, whatever it is. Like, this is kind of the modern version of that stuff. And it used to be, remember, like Print Shop Pro was kind of the lame consumer version of like a desktop publishing package or whatever. These things started out like that, but they've gotten very sophisticated. Now they have, generative AI, image creation capabilities, et cetera, et cetera. So it's interesting watching this stuff kind of mature and turn into something interesting.
Turn into the feature of a larger product, which probably is a better outcome.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And one that's not called Adobe something.
Yeah.
So,
goodness.
If
it's all
you
well
are
and fine till Adobe comes to buy you.
Yeah. Well, that didn't work with Figma.
Not that they didn't try. Not like they didn't cripple Figma in the process.
I know.
Achieve the goal.
I know. Well, that was their decision. They stopped working on stuff maybe they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But you can see why they did.
Yeah. I don't know of a company going through acquisition that doesn't happen. Like, it is a punishment.
Yeah, it's what happened with Nokia. It's one of the Lumia line was going nowhere during that entire purchase process. And then Microsoft got them in-house and they were like, so what's next? And like, we don't have anything next. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, we were waiting for you to buy us.
Took you a year. What are you doing?
It was one of the many, many problems there.
Yeah.
So if you're an Apple fan or an Apple user,
and who isn't, really?
Or even if you're not, if you're a human being, you would have heard that back in June, Apple announced this Apple Intelligence stuff coming in the fall, not necessarily day and date, but with iOS 18, iPad OS 18, and whatever Mac OS, I can't remember what it's called. Who cares? Sequoia, maybe. There's always been this indication like most or all of this would not appear in V1. And then Apple, I guess, has just confirmed it because in addition to having an iOS 18 beta and an iPad, macOS, whatever, they now have an iOS 18.1 beta that is specifically to test the Apple Intelligence stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's like, I think that's a first.
That's what I was thinking. Apple usually just goes, it's going to be here, and they deliver.
I guess in the sense they must test current, they must have like an iOS 17 point something going on somewhere. I don't know.
Because they have no insider program. Like, nobody knows anything.
Yeah. I've never seen this in the app before. So it was very interesting to see iOS 18 and 18.1 as choices in software updates, in addition to the stable channel or whatever they call it. So I opted into this. You get on a wait list. They approved me 10 seconds later. So I was right in. And the only two things I've used so far are the Siri thing, because now they do the Samsung style ring light when it comes on, kind of rainbow colored, which I think is really attractive and kind of fun. And then the summarize feature in Safari, which is limited to reader mode. And I've used it to summarize several of my longer articles, the 3,000 to 7,000 word missives. Right. And it's pretty good.
Summarizing your own stuff. Like you're not upset at their summary of your stuff because I'm
a little upset. I'm a little, I guess what I mean is the quality of the summaries are pretty good. Like there were a couple of assertions where it's like, that doesn't follow. That's not what I meant kind of things. But some of the really long ones, I'm like, let's see if it can make sense of this. Cause I can tell no one else did. And it was like, yeah, okay. Like that's pretty good. It's almost, if anything, a little too subtle. Like, and they're not very long summaries for the most part. Most of them were just a couple sentences.
Well, I think they has a tough time prioritizing summary statements. It's like the one thing a human does a good job of when you're looking at a bunch of words like that. It's like, this is the most important statement in this. There's like 5 points made, but clearly this is the important point. And I don't think the summarizer can do that.
The big difference between this and the article, whatever content summaries I've seen before, right? So for example, if you use Copilot for this on the web and you've got a web page over here and you're like, summarize this for me. Those use bulleted lists to kind of highlight the main points. That's the fundamental structure. And the Apple one is more conversant, I guess. It's just 2 to 5 sentences, single paragraph usually.
Yeah.
Pretty concise. Like, and I think you could make a case for both, ways to do that and maybe even have some kind of configurable setting to determine what it looks like. But the Apple one, it's interesting. Like I kind of like it. It feels a little less engineery and a little more like personable or human or whatever. So
it sounds very Apple.
Plus rainbow colors. Come on, guys. It's fun.
I'm just,
so, and then
iOS. Turns out this AI stuff is hard, especially when you're coming in late. Like,
okay, jeez, so brutal to Apple.
I think it might be better to come in a little late.
Yeah.
No. Somebody else take the arrows in the back.
Exactly.
This gives you a chance to survey the table, see what all the hands look like, and
well, let's be clear. They came up with the best name. I'm still waiting on the rest.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Co-opted the acronym.
Oh, it's the best.
Brilliantly.
Oh yeah. You know what AI means? Apple Intelligence.
Brilliant.
And if you're using Twitter, or as they call it these days, X, as the kids call it
that.
I refuse to call it
that.
He
did a poll saying, should we change the next back? It came up 90%.
They said no. He's like, yeah, fuck. We're gonna
Please keep X. We don't like the confusion.
Yeah, this is the Stephen Snofsky School of Management. We listened to your feedback and we acted just accordingly.
Yep.
We did what I was going to do anyway. So apparently, X, as we'll call it, is using public posts to train its own chatbot, which also has a wonderful name, Grok, with a K. It's the traditional K spelling of Grok.
Yeah, it's from Stranger in a Strange Land.
Yep.
Yeah, but you know what's funny? Because when they put out the press release, they didn't say Stranger in a Strange Land. Right. They said, I forgot what some other sci-fi
They
story.
Probably quoted like some, what do you call it?
They said Grok, as in, Moon is a harsh mistress. And it was like, what? No? What? No?
Yeah. Huh? It's weird because usually everything on Twitter is so accurate.
So accurate. I never expected.
You definitely want to train data on this set of like misinformation spreading losers. But anyway, whatever. So they're doing that. You can opt out of it, as it turns out. They don't really publicize this, but apparently if you go into settings, you can opt out of it. So I just make fun of X on X. So I'm going to let them use mine. I think that's going to help balance things, but we'll see. What a terrible thing.
It's good at dad jokes, apparently. So
it's all dad jokes. That's pretty much my entire career at this point. Dad jokes.
Dad jokes all the way down. All right, Xbox segment just around the corner. I know you wait for that all day. First, a word from our sponsor, Big ID, BIGID. Now, I know I don't have to tell you data security is everything, right? But now I think we're also learning you need to fortify against bigger problems. All custodians of data, especially modern CISOs, need proactive solutions. It's a little too late when your screen is blue to say, we should do something about this. Luckily, with Big ID, you can trust that your most valuable asset is secure. We've been talking a lot about AI. A lot of companies want to use AI, but they're very nervous that their company data will get somehow snarfed up into an LLM. They're not sure about it. And as a CISO, your job is to ensure that the promise of AI doesn't become a security pitfall. Big ID's Gen AI solutions help you navigate the labyrinthine world of AI from the CISO perspective. With Big ID, you can leverage solutions that take a defense in-depth approach to automating manual processes, improving accuracy and actionability, and applying AI and ML to cut through the noise, to improve risk management and enable a robust data security strategy. If you think about it, there's so many things that we could do with AI, that we want to do with AI in business, but there's this nervousness about it. Big ID solves this. It allows you to find and classify your data accurately and at scale, and everywhere your data lives, on-prem, in the cloud, whether it's structured or unstructured or both semi-structured, covering hundreds of data sources. Maybe that's why the U.S. Army uses Big ID. Imagine the variety of data they've got. You can make sure that you're training your AIs only on data that's safe to use. You can minimize your attack surface through policy-driven retention management by removing redundant and outdated data, getting rid of the stuff you can, right? So it doesn't pollute your LLM. You can audit and inspect what data is being shared with AI, and you can be alerted when usage policies are breached. I think you're looking for this, right? People are going to use AI. You want to make sure they use it safely. Telenor, I mentioned the Army. There's also Telenor. They use Big ID to show their customers that they're handling their data in a secure way. And if you're a telecom, lately, that's probably a good thing. This is what Telenor says, quote, "We want to solve customer problems and regulatory demands. We want to focus on the business and have a partner like Big ID to focus on the tech. We wanted a partner that understood what we're doing and can help us. Companies who use," this is a quote, direct quote from Telenor, "companies who use Big ID are showing that they're taking data seriously." Big ID has so many awards. Market leader in data security posture management. That's from the Global InfoSec Awards by Cyber Defense Magazine. They got Best Data Security Company in the Cybersecurity Excellence Awards, a coveted spot in the Citizens JMP Cyber 66 report, which recognizes Big ID for elevating data management and security with the first of its kind AI technology. This is a company you want to get to know, you want to know more about. Start protecting your sensitive data wherever your data lives at bigid.com/windows. They've got a free demo to show you how Big ID can help your organization reduce data risk and accelerate the adoption of generative AI. You can have both. Big ID is bigid.com/windows. They have a lot of white papers there too that I think you'll find very useful. Little late night reading. There's a free new report that provides valuable insights and key trends on AI adoptions, challenges, and the overall impact of Gen AI across organizations. If you're a CISO, if you're a CIO, if you are in IT management, this is stuff you need to know right now. Visit bigid.com/windows to learn more. Big ID. Thank you, Big ID, for supporting Windows Weekly. And now we continue with the long-awaited, much-desired, ever-loving Xbox segment. Is that too much? Did I oversell it?
It's
the time. We can make you a jingle. We can.
I'll just get the hat going and I have a few things, I guess. So Microsoft is testing a big Xbox OS update with insiders, so it's not public yet, but it's all aimed at making Discord a better experience through Xbox. So the two big things to me are voice chat, which is expanding dramatically, and then really improving the streaming experience. It's not going to allow you to stream directly to YouTube, but the overall quality is going to go up. If you want 1080p 60 frames, you have to pay for like a Discord Nitro subscription or whatever. But I guess this has been a fairly lousy experience since it happened. So they're finally working together to fix that problem. So that's fun.
Well, gamers use Discord. You got to be there.
Yeah. So every once in a while, I'll mention the fact that a year ago, March, I stopped using my Xbox, and
still going.
Yeah. And I filled that time, which is what 15 months or more, not playing games mostly, honestly, but the games I do play, I've been playing on the PC. Right. And the thing I've noticed is basic PCs, by which I mean kind of U series, integrated graphics type based laptops are getting better. And we're not that far away from, being able to get an inexpensive, decent laptop for less than $1,000, a lot less in some cases, that plays games really well. And the first indication I had that this was starting to happen was with Meteor Lake, right? So last December, when I reviewed the first Meteor Lake PC I got in, one of the things Intel had promoted was dramatic improvements to the integrated graphics on not U series, but above U series. So if you're on U series Meteor Lake, you still have the old Intel Xe graphics, right? But if you have H series or better, mobile, I think it's just H series, you get these new Arc graphics, incredibly better, better performance, better quality, et cetera. So I installed a bunch of games and tried it. And yeah, it kind of worked. There were some games that definitely weren't happening, but it did pretty well. And, not a gaming PC, obviously, but even without dedicated graphics, you can see this was maybe kind of coming. And I've heard from multiple people that AMD is actually in a much better space for this kind of stuff because of their integrated Radeon graphics. And I've been waiting for something that I could, see the truth of that. And a couple of weeks ago, Lenovo offered me a couple of different things, but one of them was I don't know. Oh, AMD. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. So it's just a little. So
you
AMD.
wanted to take an AMD machine out for a spin. Just wanted to see.
Oh yeah, for a long time. I just don't get enough of these things, right? So this is just a standard IdeaPad. It's a 2-in-1, not a traditional clamshell, but that doesn't matter. 14-inch screen, 1920 by 1200, nothing special, right? But AMD Ryzen 7, 8845 HS. HS is their kind of H equivalent. Radeon 780 graphics. As configured, about $600.
Wow.
Yeah. And this thing can play games, baby, really well, really well. And it is almost shocking to me to tell you that that's true. It's as a laptop for, I have it here. I
just remember when a sub $1,000 laptop was a piece of junk.
Yeah. So actually there is this thing compared to other laptops of this ilk is heavy. It's thick. I don't know yet the battery life. I've been dying to try this. I just opened the lid to see if it did anything. It did not. Oh no, it's booting up. Oh, that's
here you go. Welcome.
So that's doing that. It's still x86. But okay, actually that came on super fast, by the way. That's
so
pretty
maybe came out hibernate.
Yeah, that was actually very good. That's much better than Meteor Lake. That's okay. That's cool. And this just for the price, are you kidding me? Yeah, it's a little clacky. It's not, it's made of aluminum. It's not plastic.
This is a machine you get a kid. For sure.
Yeah, this is my son would love this computer. This is not bad. I could live with this thing. It's fine. A little loud, when you type on it, clack, whatever. But it's this is shocking to me. It's nice.
Sub $1,000 computers on the rate. The big thing here is that AMD bought Radeon ages ago, and so it's what you get now. When you buy an AMD machine, it's always going to have a Radeon processor on it, which may not be as fast as the top of the line NVIDIA's, but they are legit cards.
It's damn good. So
the top of the line AMD Radeon desktop set is a competitor every time for a top of the line Intel NVIDIA set. Because it's on Game Pass now, I put the most recent Call of Duty game on there. It runs at native resolution at 60 frames per second. Nice.
It looks incredible.
$600 machine.
Yep. And I stopped playing it because it's Call of Duty. But it looks amazing. It looks amazing.
That's impressive.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And hardware upgrades are cheap if you want more RAM, more storage.
But this is where Tom's Hardware comes out and says, hey, if you want a low price machine, you buy a Radeon.
This is
funny because I think Richard's getting to you, Paul, and you're turning into the PC master race.
Well, I wouldn't say it that way.
It's a better place to live. Where the joy is.
I'm with you, but Paul's such a console guy.
Here's the thing. So for me, gaming is a kind of a secondary activity, but this is, Bill Gates would have called this the magic of software. The notion that the PC, which is so versatile, can do this in a form factor that is also very good for the things I need most often is what makes this interesting, right? I don't need another device. The thing I already have will do this, and it will do it to the quality that is good enough for me for the amount of time I'm going to use it. And I've been I've talked about some of the games I've been playing this year. I will absolutely finish Doom 2016 on this device. There's no doubt about it. I will move on to the other game I was playing that I always forget the name of it. It's a weird name. The Shishua, whatever.
So is this dedicated graphics or is it the AMD?
So
built-in?
it's
the Radeon Mobile.
It's the 780. So if it's dedicated graphics, it's as low. It's, I believe. See, I don't actually know. I don't want to say. It's not like a. I'm not 100% sure. I got to be honest. The thing sounds like a jet engine when it comes on, when you play a game, for sure.
Okay.
Right?
That checks out.
780
Which is dedicated graphics-esque. But that, you know what? The truth is, if you play a game on any PC, even a Snapdragon
Nowadays,
PC, they wind up with a game. So that's why I'm actually sure. There is dedicated RAM for the graphics that suggests.
Yeah, they call it integrated graphics, but it's from 2023. They call it,
that's why I know. That's so it's hard to say. AMD refers to these chips as like APUs, right? So to me, I don't know enough to say for sure. I don't want to sound like an idiot, although I think by stammering I'm sounding like an idiot because I just don't know. But I would equate this to be integrated graphics.
Yeah, but integrated graphics was some badass.
Some of the benefits of dedicated graphics.
768 shaders, like, okay, it's no RTX 4090, but good Lord, man.
No, it's good. It really is good. And
it's really good. This thing's still pulling down teraflops.
Yep. It's good. Yeah. This thing could be paired with a much better, the Shenmue Saga. That's it. Hellblade 2, yeah. Much better screen would be nice. Bigger screen would also be nice. But it's 60 frames a second, full HD plus, nothing special. But honestly, it's pretty great. Like
you know what it is? You know what really makes it integrated graphics is that it's shared memory.
Oh, it's a shared memory. Okay, I'm sorry.
That speeds it up, though, right? That's a good thing.
Well, generally shared memory is faster, but it's busy, right?
Yeah.
So,
but it also means, that's what as people claim is the benefit of Apple Silicon's integrated memory is you can use all the RAM.
It's a shorter path.
I'm sorry. Local memory, local cache is going to be faster, but dedicated
and
memory
more
means
capacious,
you have more space
and more capacious because video cards.
So all I'm saying is like this game Doom that I'm playing is a few years old.
It's a bigger suitcase.
This is VSync on graphics setting at ultra consistent 60 frames a second. Like it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know. AMD FSR
and it's $600.
Upscaling $600.
Now, as you would like it equipped, how much is it?
$600.
Yeah.
You couldn't spend more than $700 on this if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It's $600.
That's outstanding.
Do you credit this to the AMD? I guess you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think AMD's chips are cheaper.
As I mentioned, I am an AMD gamer. I have my game machine is an Alienware running in.
A big old Threadripper is a powerhouse. Like, no two ways about it.
It's about this
energy hog.
Oh yeah, no, it'll heal a room. Like
that's okay.
But if you ever hung out with a 4090, it'll burn your fingers from a distance.
Right.
Anyway, yes, it's fantastic. And then from 2005 until last March, I was all Xbox. And that started with the original Xbox 360, which launched in November 2005.
Was that the first one?
No, this is the second one. But I had the first one, but I still played games on PC through that. And then by the time the 360 arrived, I'm like, all right, I'm going console.
This is it. It's all good.
Yep. And now I'm not, but whatever. And they have, Xbox 360 obviously supplanted by various generations of Xbox One and now Xbox Series X and S. But they just this past, I think it was 2 days ago, closed the Xbox store for Xbox 360. So you can't actually buy games anymore for the console.
Years.
This thing has been around for, I know it's almost 20 years. It's crazy.
But it was also, there was always a big debate if this was a good idea because they went to the custom ASIC approach, right? Like devs hated this thing because it was a bear to build.
Well, it was a power PC.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was a completely different architecture. It generally screwed everything up.
Hard to build software on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this was an interesting console because remember it launched with, I think it was just 720p, but if it wasn't, then it was like 1080i. But I believe it was just 720p.
I think you're right.
They later added 1080i and they later added 1080p. They kind of, they actually, I don't know. I think everyone needed a little while to get caught up on the hardware and kind of figure it out. But, they got it right eventually. It was definitely a high point for Microsoft and Xbox.
Yeah, but
other than the whole red.
This was up against the PlayStation 3, which is also PowerPC, right? Like it was a period of time where they thought
it was the arm of the day.
Yeah. It was just this mindset of we need to build dedicated hardware to compete with the PowerPC master race. Yeah. They were wrong, but that's what they were trying to do. And the bigger thing, I think, was it made every game development more expensive by a lot. By slowing the dev cycle down, by requiring more hardware, like it was really costly.
Yeah. Well, they've solved that problem, right? I mean, games are. Oh wait.
No, but they introduced a different problem, right? Like at this moment, and I'll tell the story when we get to the end here about my weekend sitting with the top tier game developers, just talking about how much money it costs to stress a PS5, like just the sheer amount of graphical assets and resources. Like you can't build a PS6 because we can't afford to make a game for it. Like we'll never take advantage of the machine.
So it's funny you say that. I'm reading a book about the history of PC gaming right now. That's pretty good. And one of the points this guy makes, and you kind of forget about this stuff, is like when the 386 came out, and then especially the 486, and DX. They moved from like VGA graphics and multiple color, et cetera. Those things were so expensive that it was just too expensive to develop a game that targeted it. It didn't make sense. It was like a
you never sell enough of them. It was cheaper to throw the video card in the box with it.
Yeah, and that almost often like doubled the price at the time. It was crazy.
Easy. Yeah.
Anyway, interesting. I guess that's it.
That's okay.
Yeah, a lot of Blizzard conversation there. I really appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Oh, I forgot to add all the games that Microsoft added to Game Pass from Activision.
Yeah.
Oh, this page intentionally left blank.
Nice.
I will have in our new studio a crickets sound effect.
Just exactly.
I'll have a womp womp.
I think I got that one.
Don't worry, but at least they raised the price of my subscription.
Wow.
Raise your price of your subscription.
Richard Campbell on the trombone, everybody.
There you go.
It works
me and my P8 pad are working just fine.
I shouldn't have, but I have ordered a number of pads and doodads and doohickeys. And
I'll match my sound effects against yours. We'll have some fun.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. Our show today brought to you by us. Actually, really by the Club Twit members, but I consider us a community, a good group of people who are tech enthusiasts who like to learn, like to laugh while they're learning, enjoy hanging out with their friends. If you would like to join the club, we would love to have you. It is a club open to all. All you need is $7. That's how much it is, $7 a month. You get some great benefits, ad-free versions of all of our shows. You get access to the Club Twit Discord, a great place to hang. You can actually watch our shows live in the Discord. You could chat about it as well. You also get some other things. Oh, yeah, video for the shows that we only put out in audio. And that includes iOS Today, Hands on Macintosh, Hands on Windows, the new Ask the Tech Guy. What else? Lots of shows. Scott Wilkinson's Home Theater Geeks, Untitled Linux Show, Paul's wonderful Hands on Windows. I think I mentioned that. Anyway, you get that. You get the events, the special events we do. And going forward, Twit is pivoting. We're doing Twit 4.0 now. And the new thing as I move up into the attic studio and Micah moves down into the basement studio is I think we're going to be going live more often. I kind of thinking maybe going live for an hour or two every day. And of course, that'll be club members only. Join the club. We'd love to have you. It helps us do what we do best, which is make content for you. And I want to really focus more on the community as a whole. So twit.tv/clubtwit and join the family, will you? Now it's time for the back of the book. And Paul Thurrott has a tip of the week. Paul?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of commingle the tip and the app pick. And if you do watch Hands on Windows, sometime soon there'll be the first of what I think are going to be 2 episodes about password managers. And I'll be recording the second one. I think it's going to be 2 tomorrow, but I don't know when that comes out exactly. It's going to be a few weeks down the road. But the central theme here is that, we've talked a lot about passkeys over the past year. We've talked a lot about 2FA forever. But when it comes to securing your online accounts, password manager is kind of the key. And you could use one that's built into your web browser, like everyone has done. A lot of those are integrated with the underlying platform. If you use like an Apple, Google, or Microsoft browser, It's okay. They all do the same things, but they also all fall short in the same ways as well. And I feel very strongly that you should use a third-party password manager. But I feel even more strongly that you need to not make the mistake everyone else makes. And I mean everyone makes, I should say, which is you've probably used different browsers and you've probably used different platforms. You've probably, if you use password managers, may have used a few of them. And I bet most of you didn't think to go delete all your passwords from the old ones ever. So it's a pretty good chance your passwords are sitting in multiple vaults all over the planet. And maybe you should do something about that. Just a thought. But when you look at the functionality that you would get with a third-party password manager, by the way, some of which are free, you don't have to spend money. And if you do, it's a little bit of money. In addition to storing passwords, managing passwords, and basic things like addresses and phone numbers and payment methods and so forth. Good password managers will also generate 2FA codes for you. They'll form they'll be like an authenticator app, right? So they can be used for 2FA as well. They will store passkeys, which makes them portable, right? Passkeys are hardware or device specific. If you create a passkey on this computer, this is the only place you can really use it. By storing it in your password manager, which you will install on every device you own, those passkeys will be available everywhere you are. It's awesome. Most password managers do things like look for insecure passwords, repeated passwords, passwords that have been involved in some kind of a leak somewhere online. Not paid, third-party ones usually offer also dark web monitoring, right? And the feature I actually like the most, and this is the one that's not everywhere, this one makes it a little bit tough, is in the same way that a password manager today will alert you if, hey, there was a leak and we saw, one of your passwords or accounts is in there, you should, change the password, do something about it. These things will scan your accounts and they'll look for accounts that support 2FA or passkeys, depending on the solution, and then tell you, hey, you should put 2FA on this account. You could better secure this thing, or you could add a passkey to this account. That's super smart. And this is key because keeping up with this is literally impossible for any individual. You need to secure those accounts now, but then this will keep you up to date because some random account will add 2FA support maybe or passkey support someday. You'll never know, probably. And this thing will let you know. And then you can add that and you'll be more secure. It's genius. Personal pet peeve. I also like the idea of a passwordless password manager. And what I mean by that is a password manager that does not have what used to be called, and maybe in some cases is still called, a master password, its own password. In other words, the primary way that you get into it is through a password. You can, there are okay solutions that make this a little better. For example, obviously using 2FA would be one to have that second factor of authentication, not just a password. But I like the idea of a password manager not having a password itself. And Dashlane was the first to do that in stable, and that's why I've been using that for several months. But I know 1Password, Bitwarden, and I'm not sure about Proton Plus, but or Proton Pass. I don't know what I call that. Or they're working on it, and maybe that stuff's available. I don't know.
I've gone down the YubiKey path, but I'm not recommending to anybody else.
Yeah, because that's just the problem with security is complexity and inconvenience, and I just think there's a good balance to be had. I don't think it's particularly. I do this all day, every day, literally, where I have to look at my phone to either get a code out of an authenticator app. Or,
I'm at the point now where I'm ready to move off authenticator too, right? Like I'd like a secure solution that didn't require authenticator and didn't require YubiKey.
Yes. And so the only, right. So my argument is that it's not that inconvenient to have to use a phone for authentication, whatever the solution might be. You probably have a couple of them.
Right. Up till you drop the phone off the boat. Yeah. It's fine.
but you could have that in multiple devices, et cetera. Yes, to your point. Yes. But from a convenience standpoint, it's okay because everyone has a phone, but the only thing more convenient than requiring you to pick up this device you do have is to have that all be on the device you are using right now, right? Which is where that password manager that can do 2FA, that can do passkeys, and that works on every single device you have. That's why that becomes so important. It's with you wherever you are. You don't have to have this device. You just have to be using one of your devices, whichever device it is. So rather than pick one, because I'm still evaluating these. I've been using Dashlane since the beginning of the year. I switched to Proton Pass possibly as long as a month ago. I'm going to look at 1Password again very, very soon. Although I'm having trouble.
And you're
getting
not bringing the
Proton
spouse
Pass.
along for this ride, right? Like,
No, I'm going to find out
something.
I'm going to find something that works, and then we're going to discuss this with Stephanie.
Yeah, so I'm on Bitwarden, gotten off of LastPass because the PE
because LastPass, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to blame the tech. I'm not going to blame developers. I blame the private equity firms that passed that company around like a bong that they kept spilling.
It's I looked up the history of LastPass because of what happened.
It's just horrifying
with them. Well, so the last act, they were bought by the company that was like, I'm going to get this backwards. It was like the company that owned LogMeIn or whatever that company was. They literally spun this thing off within the past year. They literally dumped it. They got rid of it.
Like, so they basically studied it, realized what a mess it was, and got it out of there.
Yep. That happened. So don't.
Well, and I got to think every knowledgeable developer bailed like 3 handovers.
Oh God, yes. Oh yeah.
Like it's gutted. It's a wreck.
It's a piece of crap.
Yeah, and you should. And it's not safe. Get your data out of there.
Yep. No, I wrote did I talk about that last week? Because I wrote a big thing about
LastPass is not on that list of 3. That
terrible.
No.
Yeah. So I would say
but I went from there to Bitwarden, but that's because the spouse is there. And she cares about the shared house accounts. Like I've got her all the way in.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
That is an issue.
Listen,
you gotta.
Nothing I'm going to say here is if you're using one of these 4, switch to one of these other. That's not the point. It's just that
only Paul skips around password managers because
don't you do this. That's a nut.
No, don't you do this.
Yeah.
The biggest thing everyone should be doing is getting rid of the passwords in other password managers. Right. That's the biggest thing. But as far as apps go, I will say, of all those extra things that third-party tools do, the one that does the most of them, in fact, I think does all of them, is 1Password. I'll just say that. I'm not using it right now, but that's the one.
And I would also push Have I Been Pwned in that.
I'm not familiar with that.
Most of the password managers actually that I know of use Have I Been Pwned to let you know if you've been compromised. So you may not even have to visit Have I Been Pwned because
well, you know what? Probably get your own account and Have I Been Pwned. You just get an email letting you know how bad things are.
Doesn't hurt. Yeah.
But the nice thing there is when I get that email from Have I Been Pwned, I just go change the password for the latest breach. Like that's just reality.
Yeah. That's sad, isn't it? You don't reuse passwords, though.
I don't at all, and I still.
Of course not. Yeah.
Okay.
You sure?
Yep. You got us going, Paul.
Yeah.
You found a topic we can all get involved in.
Well, watch Hands on Windows. I'm going to do a demo of each of those features I was discussed earlier.
That's great. Yeah. Do that.
Honestly, having used all of these and more, any password manager, even LastPass, is better than none.
Okay, that's fair. But the problem is most people actually are using probably multiple password managers and not realizing it. And Chrome is the big
because they're using the browser.
Yeah, because they're like one day they're like, I use Edge for a little while, then I went back to Chrome, and they don't really think about this. And like this stuff is just kind of out there. Now, if you're using like Apple is probably the best of this, but Apple, Google, Microsoft, you're protecting this account, right? Like you have 2FA, all the stuff. I mean, I talked specifically about securing Microsoft accounts several months ago, but as long as those accounts are as secure as they can be, and they can be very secure, you're probably fine. But the problem is randomly, maybe you use Firefox once or, whatever it was. Like a lot of you, and I have absolutely, this data is like everywhere. You got to be really careful with this stuff.
First thing I do with any browsers, turn off save passwords for me.
Go away.
So
A, because they're not secure, and B, because then you have this password spread out everywhere.
Yeah.
And you will know it the minute you go to a site and you don't know the password and you're on the different browser. You'll say, huh?
There's so much this, like one of the, all password managers, including the terrible ones in browsers, will recommend, strong passwords when you create a new account. And that's good. And I think people have a knee-jerk reaction like, well, hold on a second. I need to know what this password is. Like, no, you don't.
No.
You very much do not need to know what it is.
There's nothing better in this world than knowing none of your passwords.
Here's the idea. You know one thing. You know how to get into your password manager. Yeah, forget the rest of it. Because that thing will be available everywhere.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, sign of Have I Been Pwned. It's free.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. That's Troy Hunt. He's good people. He's the one all these folks depend on.
I don't think I've ever used it.
Well,
you haven't? Come on.
Really? you'll get some emails.
You could just go there and enter some of your passwords and see what happens.
Well, the main thing is sign up with your email
Is it
address,
safe?
and then it's going to email you that,
Right.
then you'll know that,
How does it know what your passwords are, though, Richard?
Well, it doesn't
leaked?
necessarily. It doesn't necessarily know what your password is. What it knows is what breaches you've showed up in. Like Troy Hunt.
What breaches your email has showed up.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, and Troy Hunt has transitioned to this weird place where not only all the good guys count on him, but all the bad guys count on him too, because you've only achieved a breach when Troy Hunt agrees that that's a breach. Because there's lots of fake breaches out there, to the point where the hackers send him a copy of the data because he will validate it and say, yep, this is a legit breach.
They have, and safe to use, but on there it is, Have I Been Pwned, you have, if you see at the top, there's also passwords. There's an extra little service that's a little different from what Richard's talking about. Richard's saying, give them your email address and you'll be notified if your email shows up in a breach. But up there on passwords, it'll show you if your password has been seen in a breach. Yeah. And people say, well, I'm not putting my password in there, but it's completely safe. He only sends a hash. But it is a very interesting thing. And it's only useful if you reuse passwords, because
which you should never do.
You shouldn't be doing. Yes.
No, because
but enter your
does.
old password.
Yeah,
the one
does.
you used back in the day when you used the same password everywhere. Enter it there and see. It's mine shows up in literally everywhere.
Yeah, that's not good.
Did you talk about passkeys much? Because boy, the passkey situation is bad.
I mean,
400, according to Dashlane, 400% increase in passkey usage.
Yeah, what's
They
the
don't
success
mention-
rate though?
Yeah, we went from
4%?
1 to 400.
Yeah, exactly.
I use passkeys wherever I can, but I was
1
telling
to
Richard
4.
before the show that
Oh, look at, you entered your password in? Kevin entered his password and it's been breached 91,000 times.
I just hit monkey 1, 2, 3.
Oh, well, there you go. That's the one. That's the one, 91,000 times. Yeah. So I'm still holding out hope for passkeys because it's really nice. And when it works so nicely. GitHub is the one place where and Google, I can use it pretty consistently.
Well, and I've got a show coming up talking about passkeys in the enterprise. So we're clearly going this direction.
Oh, good. You think ahead of single sign-on? That seems like, if I were an enterprise, that's what I'd focus on.
It's a far more complicated topic.
Yeah.
And it's got multiple swords to it. That's very challenging.
Okay. That's one of the things I love about the authenticator with Windows.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. 83. My number is 83.
This time. Yeah.
It's like playing bingo.
I like that. Sometimes it makes you pick the number from a list. Sometimes it makes you type the number in. Sometimes it shows the number of the authenticator. You got to type it into the site. Like they really do mix it up.
That's good. They should. That's
a
exactly
defensive
what they
strategy.
should do.
It's very clever.
Google's starting
Very
to do
smart.
this too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Very, very
All right, Richard, what's coming up?
Wow.
on Runners
Speaking
Radio?
of security, my goodness. My old friend Richard Hicks, because we love sharing a name, came back on the show. I think it's his 12th go around. I owe him a sub sandwich now. To talk about Microsoft moving private key infrastructure into the cloud. So Cloud PKI is a service that Microsoft started to promote as part of the Entra suite of tools under Charlie Bell. And so I normally talk to Richard about remote access stuff. And this guy knows so much about remote access that Microsoft calls him to have him explain remote access to them, the stuff they wrote, all the different versions, conditional access. Like there's so many different products in that space. It's confusing for folks. But he pinged me about this because he'd gone all in on working with Cloud PKI, admittedly in early times. But he focused on the most important part. And it's just, it's strictly an enterprise problem, which is you are dealing with a company that wants a high level authentication. So you're distributing client side certificates to remote machines to allow them to connect to anything. And that means you're managing a huge certificate infrastructure on premises for your Active Directory. And the one major feature that the Cloud PKI infrastructure has now through Azure is to offload that, so that all the certs related to desktop machines distributed through Intune can be managed in your Azure instance and still allow you to authenticate into your local Active Directory. So that's just a huge weight lifted off your shoulders in terms of infrastructure operating. What it doesn't do yet is handle servers, because you don't normally onboard servers through Intune. So there's now a whole conversation about what that's going to turn into. But in the meantime, the advantage of being able to use this level of encryption and to support on-prem, but run it through the cloud. It's pretty important. And so we're encouraging folks who are looking at their on-prem infrastructure and saying, like, if you're doing client certs, you need to move because this will save you a lot of grief, but it's not the all-up solution yet.
Excellent. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Some people have.
This is one of the better named brown liquors.
Oh, it's got a name on it, doesn't it? Well,
I like it.
I have a bit of a preamble because I only met this whiskey this weekend because I went to the Okanagan Valley this weekend. So a very dear friend of mine invited us up, a bunch of friends of ours actually. So we all went up to stay at his place, and he lives in wine country. He's got a lovely place there. Perfect weather without a doubt. And so we did some wine tours. And so I came home with a couple of cases of wine, but we also found a local distillery and my wife had organized it. So she'd warned them that I was coming and I'm serious about my whiskey. So I got one of their very senior people for the tour. We had some really great conversations about it.
Thanks for the warning.
Just sort of set the stage for what we're talking about. The Okanagan Valley. This is between the coastal and Rocky Mountain Range in the central British Columbia. It's semi-arable desert. It's wrapped around a big lake about 75 miles long, 2 to 3 miles wide, and 700 plus feet deep. We have our own version of Loch Ness in that called Ogopogo. And there's a few good-sized towns. At the north end of the lake is Vernon. The south end of the lake is Penticton, and it's roughly in the middle is Kelowna, which is about 150,000 people. It's always been a good fruit growing region. So there's a bunch of native berries, some of you probably not heard of, like the Saskatoon berry, which the Saskatchewan folks will tell you only grows in Saskatoon. It's not true. It also grows in BC, although arguably the prairie version is better. But also choke cherries, huckleberries, elderberries, which typically only known in Europe, but there are North American versions. The red ones are toxic. Don't eat them. And thimbleberries, which are as good as raspberries, but super fragile, so nobody ever ships them anywhere. The very first non-native fruit made in the Okanagan Valley was, of course, wine grapes made by the Catholic Church in the mid-1800s to make sacrament wine, because goodness knows you can't save souls if you don't have the blood of Christ. Shortly after that, they did the Catholic missionaries also planted apples, which, if you follow the lineage of apples, actually come from Kazakhstan and are only propagated by clippings. Apple trees, if you plant apple seeds, you will not get edible apples. They'll be terrible. They're normal default random apples. The genetics are so unstable. They're not very good. And so when you get a good species of apple, you graft. You take branches off and you graft it onto existing trees. I have met an apple tree that grew 30 varieties of apples all on a different branch. They got cherries by the late 1900s. Today, it's cherries, apples, peaches, apricot, plums, pears, nectarines, and of course, lots of wine grapes. Now, the Catholics planted what they call domestic grapes or Labrusca grapes, which are not the real good grapes. They're the cheap grapes, but they also grow well in North America. They were largely replaced during Prohibition. They mostly switched over to food crops, but after Prohibition, as they started getting back into grapes, there was an initial push towards what they call the French-American hybrids, grapes like Foch, which do still grow well. Quailsgate, one of the oldest wineries there, still grows a great Foch that I've drank a bunch of. But it wasn't until the 1970s that they actually got into the vinifera grapes, which are the ones you know and love, the Cab Francs, Cab Sauv, all that sort of things. And today, British Columbia, the Okanagan Valley specifically, second largest wine growing region in all of Canada, the largest being the Niagara Peninsula in Ontario. So, and just as a final aside, while I talk about wine before I get into whiskey, in 2020, in January this year, there was an unprecedented freeze in the Okanagan Valley. It went below negative 30 degrees centigrade for 3 days. It was an Arctic displacement front, so what was normally air that would be over the Arctic came down into British Columbia, and it killed every single wine bud. So literally no wine is going to grow this year. It killed a non-trivial number of the vines as well, and most of the fruit, to the point where the Fruit Processing Collective, BC Fruits Cooperative, just announced this month that it's shutting down because they don't have the funds to function, and they also don't have the fruit. This is the place where all the different orchards deliver their fruit to be stored, sorted, processed, packaged, and sold. So the entire industry is in a complete uproar. And I sat with a new friend at one of the wineries, a guy named Jesse, and we drank a lot of his wine and talked about the decimation, which is not even true because the decimation is only 1/10. This is like a 99% destruction of the fruit industry in the Okanagan, at least for a season. It's bad. But we were talking about whiskey, and my wife found there was a few distilleries in the area, and we went to this particular one, and thank goodness we got Jesse, the senior person there, who really dug in deep on how this industry came along. We started up in Vernon, which is that northern part of the Okanagan Lake, in 2004. And they started out making kirsch. There was a bumper crop in the early 2000s of sour cherries. These are the ones that typically go into fruit pies and things, not the ones you'd eat out of hand, to the point where they were rotting because they couldn't have enough market for them. And so if they're going to rot, why don't you make them into booze? And so they managed to acquire an older multifunction still, a still today they named Stilla, and ran it there and started picking up other fruit as well. They make grappa and other fruit distillates, a whole line of liqueurs that are award-winning. They eventually got into vodka and gin as well, of course, and they made a line of absinthe, which was the first real noise that they made on the marketplace because they caught the early wave of absinthe becoming a legitimate alcohol again. Absinthe's gone through an interesting ride. If you followed along on these things, it is a wine typically made from wormwood. It tastes like licorice. And is vaguely
it was illegal
green.
For years.
And it was, and for no good reason. This was a booze that the Egyptians have papyruses talking about making booze from wormwood.
Interesting.
But the big production of it happened in the 1800s with the Pernod family. That is today Ricard Pernod, one of the large alcoholic collectives. The main thing you got to realize about that era of booze is that you never knew what was going in the cask in terms of ABV. They didn't have specific gravity measures. And so sometimes these things came up 70, 80% alcohol and they'll make you sick, right? And so as the abstinent movements kick in the early 1900s, they go after absinthe first, right? There's some incidences related around it. It was, the Bohemian movement made it into some kind of hallucinogen. You saw the universe drinking this stuff, none of which
Green
is true.
Fairy and all that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so ultimately the solution to ban it without banning the rest of the booze by the temperate movement was to ban wormwood. And so that's how it kind of went off the market as a hallucinogen. Now, again, none of this actually true. Stop me if you've heard this one with a bunch of other products. It's not until the 1990s that this pushback against wormwood really comes along and they bring it back into play. And the ban is lifted in 2005, pretty much worldwide. Not that there ever was a ban in Canada, but the folks at Okanagan Spirits jumped on board, made a version of absinthe, and made a whole show of it. I personally find this stuff dreadful, and so I don't drink it.
Yeah, it's not good.
But it was around that point in the first couple of years of operations for Okanagan Spirits that they were making money off of the fruit brandies. And then they started contracting out making whiskey. So other folks who wanted to make whiskey, they had a still to run. So they did contract whiskey for a while. And that started bringing in some real cash for them that a few years later, they were growing rapidly and the whiskey business became substantial. The challenge, of course, is that there are major whiskey producers in Canada and the rules that govern spirit production in Canada and British Columbia are very specific to manage these ultra large companies. And so the folks at Okanagan Springs were part of a group of people that pressed the BC government to create a thing they called the craft distilling system. And really, more than anything, this was about allowing micro distilleries to function. Because making small production whiskey is expensive. And when you've got rules built around huge companies where you're taxed them very heavily, the supplier tax in British Columbia for a whiskey producer is 124%. And so it just means you can't make money on whiskey until you produce it in massive quantities, and that's hard to do. And so what they did was they said the craft rule is really about a small production place. Initially, under 50,000 liters. So that would be 65,000 bottles a year, which a big producer like Alberta Spirits produces that a day. It's 2 or 3 times that a day. But they also put some other rules in place that make these very interesting products. So if you're to qualify to be a BC craft distiller, you can only use BC products, grain, fruit, any products used in the fermentation. They have to come from British Columbia. You have to do your own fermentation and distillation. You cannot add coloring. You cannot add preservatives or any other flavors at all. You can also not add any neutral grain spirit. So it's distillate that has been aged. What do you get for following that? And you have to stay under 50,000, although today you can go up to 100,000 liters of production per year. So about 133,000 bottles per year. What do you get for staying in the craft rules? Well, the first is you're allowed to directly sell. You don't have to go through the liquor distribution board. So you can sell to licensees, you can sell to private liquor stores. And you're also exempt to the supplier markup. 100% exempt if you're under 50,000 liters, and then it's graduated. They add until you get over 100,000 liter, which point you're not a craft distiller anymore. So it's a pretty good deal, like for a small operation to make craft booze. So when I think about the conversation we had just a few weeks ago about folks like Rasse and Ballandock, which are also micro distilleries, little distilleries making small pints, what's happening in British Columbia here is they're protecting them from these larger business approaches. So they can still tax heavily the alcohol, which is a big revenue source of the large scale things, and allow these smaller markets to grow out, possibly to be acquired into bigger companies. Like there's choices there. But this is talking to the folks from Okanagan's Spirits. They were clearly a lifestyle place. Small team of people, 6 or 8. They got 2 locations in 2014. They expanded the Vernon operation, which is their main operation. They have one of the largest column stills anywhere in North America. They call it Stillzilla. And then also opened up a facility in Kelowna, which is where we went to see Stilla, which we sat right beside. It wasn't running at the time. It was there for show, but it was a live still. It was plumbed and powered and so forth. And they make a big variety of liqueurs, but they also now make an array of whiskeys. And so a few of them, they make one they call BRBN or bourbon, which is just corn and barley, no middle grain. Quite sweet, but definitely a bourbon. They make a true rye in the sense that it's 51% rye, which is a tough grain to work with. We've talked about this before, as well as barley. And then they have one they call one malt, which is 100% barley. The particular whiskey I'm talking about today is their current edition of the Laird of Fintry. So this is their high-end single malt product. They've made a bunch of different versions. When they first started making these back in 22, they were so rare you had to enter a lottery for the privilege of buying one. This particular one, they've finished them a bunch of different ways. They typically put them into bourbon casks for 5 years. Initially, I believe this was Jack Daniels. They sort of obliquely referred to a Tennessee bourbon. There's only a couple of choices there, but Jack is probably the most likely one. But then they often do an additional finishing stage. A few years ago, they did one in rum, and they've also done one in Quail's Gate dark wines. This particular one, which you call the BSV pipe finish. BSV actually stands for Black Sage Vineyards, which is down in the south of the Okanagan, and actually an area called Soyuz, which they call the Naramata Bench, where they make a brilliant Cab Franc, one of my favorite wines. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've fed some to Paul already. But a pipe cask is actually a variation on a style of port from Portugal. So this is a port finished whiskey. So 5 years in bourbon casks and about a year, maybe 9 months in the BSV pipes they got from Black Sage. Their particular port that Black Sage make, they actually do a mix of Cab Sav Merlot and Cab Franc. And during fermentation, once it hits a particular Brix level, the sugar is almost gone, then they add neutral spirit to it, which is normal for a port, which immediately kills the yeast, bumps the alcohol up a level around 20% or so, and then they barrel it for 3 years in neutral oak to make their port. Common port practices makes a good port cask, which has now made this particular whiskey. So we look at the color of this. Absolutely a port finished whiskey. Like it's got all that color for what is probably barely 6 years old. And from a noise perspective, you're still smelling a fair bit of sweet, but no burn. It's only 42%, relatively low. And remember, they do not chill filter and they do not color. One of the points that the lady we were working with for this said, we're not worried about making the same whiskey every year. Whatever happens, happens. Just enjoy it, which is legit. It's more like wine making, right? The 24 is going to be different from the 23. It's okay. Yeah, you're going to drink that all day long. Just slides down, goes, hello, thanks for playing. Very easy. So a little pricey, 85 Canadian, so about $60 US, if you could find it. Basically not exported. Sorry about that. You'll have to find somebody who's willing to go take the risk to shed it across the border for you, which is very difficult to do. But now that you know about craft distilling, you also know that most of that money actually goes to the distillery, not just the taxes, which to me makes me want to buy it more, because it's a incredibly honest manifestation of a British Columbia whiskey following some certain Scottish styles. No two ways about it. But not caught in the big alcohol machine that exists here to turn most of the stuff into our healthcare with lots of taxes. So, here I am happily poisoning myself and giving the money to people who poisoned me.
as it
What a
should
relationship.
be. As it should be. Instead of the people trying to fix you.
Yeah, instead of people trying to fix me, who cares about those people, honestly? But, I had a lovely tour from those folks. The Okanagan Valley is, of course, incredibly gorgeous and great. And the time, if you're really into wine, you go there in October. This year's going to be really interesting because literally there are no native grapes this year. So all of the different wineries are scrambling to adjust, see, can we get the rules adjusted so we can buy grapes from Washington or Oregon, or would you stick strictly to Canada and buy them from the Niagara Peninsula? Like, they're all trying to figure out how to make a vintage this year because that freeze killed virtually every grape in the area. It's unbelievable. But in the meantime, we're having a sip. We found a low. Now I realize there's 60, 70 of these micro distilleries in BC because of this craft rule, because it allows these small operations to work. And so we could be talking about different BC whiskeys for a year. Easy.
Wow. And good ones, which is nice.
So far, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This one is lovely. But you know what? You could mess up whiskey in small quantities too.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Richard Campbell, Toastmaster Extraordinaire, host at runnersradio.com and .NET Rocks, and our esteemed leader when it comes to brown liquor. Thank you, Richard.
Always a pleasure. And, I love that I have an excuse. It's like, we had to do this because it's my job.
And apparently you're becoming renowned for this.
Folks are excited. I had a really good time talking to them. And it's like, every distillery guy I've met in doing this, just excited that somebody cares. That they're really
I think
interested.
that's it. And I think, I'm going to guess, there are a lot of pretentious people who act like they know this stuff. And when you go in, you actually do. They feel much more appreciated. There are a lot of blowhards in this.
I think most people that show up just want a free drink or drink for cheap.
Right.
I think that's the vast majority of the folks that go in and take a tasting. It's just a thing to do, right? And maybe they're interested, maybe they're not. Certainly, there's plenty of blowhards in this space.
Oh yeah,
and certainly they were approaching me like I was one of those. And then
they realized, right?
Yeah, you take some time and you laugh about the hard
the
parts.
words. Yeah.
As soon as I was asking about the foaming issues around rye, the lady looks at me like, "Huh,
okay. I must reassess. He's not just here for the booze."
Yeah.
Well, we are here for the booze, so thank you, Richard. We also thank Thurrott. He is at thurrott.com, and his books are at leanpub.com. That's where you'll find Windows everywhere and the field guide to Windows 11 with Windows 10 inside. And every day, every Wednesday, we get together, we gather to think, to talk, to speak about Microsoft and Windows Weekly. A special thanks to Kevin King today, who did something he doesn't normally do. He's our producer. But today he had to push the buttons too, because we're trying a whole new way of doing things. We'll do the show in the studio one more time next week. And then after that, I will be in my attic. Kevin will be in his whatever, his onsen, doing the show. remotely, which will be very
excited for
interesting.
you, Leo. I think this is going to be great.
Well, we'll see. I won't have that nice lake you have out the window. That's for sure.
I'll give you the view before we wrap up.
Okay. It'll be a little different. Thank you for bearing with us, everybody. This is the new look. We would love your feedback. One of the things we're debating right now is the size of the lower thirds. They're so tiny, which is small, fine. But yeah, they're out of the way. But I looked at it on like a phone.
They're illegible.
You can't tell what it says. So I'd like your input, audience members. Let us know, especially you club members. We can make them bigger on this platform. We can't make them bigger on Restream. We can make them bigger on this platform. There's an aesthetic debate. Mm-hmm. Apparently, I'm very old, and the big lower thirds are old-fashioned.
You've got a Chiron fixation, and
I do.
The generation can't spell Chiron, so
they don't do Chiron. What's that?
What's that?
And it is true. You look at old TV, like from the '90s, football games and stuff, and it's terrible looking. So I know times change. So maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Steven says they look way better.
You ever think of that?
Huh?
Maybe I'm just right.
Well, that's what I tell them, but they don't believe me. There you go. Look at that. Ooh. Wow. I didn't know you could expand.
Oh, there was text in that little white thing? That's fun.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you know, as you get older, it gets harder to read small print. And I thought maybe it's just me.
Right.
Maybe it's just me. But I don't know. I didn't realize you could do that so easily, Kevin. Look at that.
That looks really good.
Don't you think that looks better? I mean,
the font is excellent.
It's clean. It's simple. Doesn't have a lot of color. We're just. It's informational, but it has to be big enough to read. I think that's what we're going back and forth on. There was text in that little white thing, says Paul Theron. Oh, interesting. We will be back next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. We are streaming now. Part of this move, this pivot for Twit, means we stream everywhere and we have chat everywhere. So that's a big shift for us. So if you're in the club, you can watch in the Discord and chat there. But you can also, everybody's invited to chat on YouTube, youtube.com/twit/ oh, look, something's happening. There it is.
Ooh,
the chat is ready to display messages. Mm-hmm. And this is the unified chat. So that's a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Increase the font size without increasing the size of the box. That's actually an interesting thought. So YouTube, Twitch, we're on twitch.tv/twit, LinkedIn, Facebook, x.com, and Kick. So there are now 7 places you can watch us live.
Yeah,
I still think most people will prefer to watch us on demand, like a podcast. Mm-hmm. And if you want to do that, there are many ways to do it. You can go to the website, twit.tv/ww. Paul also puts the video of the show up on his site, thurrott.com. You can also go to youtube.com. There's a Windows Weekly channel there for the video. But I think the most convenient method would be to find a podcast player. We have links on our webpage to a bunch of them. And subscribe. That way you'll get it automatically as soon as we're done. As soon as Kevin edits this sucker. Thank you, Kevin King. Good job today. Thank you, Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. Thank you to our club members. We will see you all next time on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.